Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Connor Newt is here today. Hello, Connor Newt.
What's up, Jared?
So I got to tell you, this week, the first week of the football season is now officially behind us. Although they do have something called Back Together Saturday, where all the teams will have practice, and they'll make a big deal about it on the NFL Network or whatever it is they'll make a big deal about. But I heard PK say this morning, and I don't disagree with it. I mean, football really starts in September, but we get a pretty good idea early on in training camp as to what's what. So I want to start on this today. Sometimes I get labeled as a little negative. In fact, somebody this week got really upset at me. I don't really understand why. They got really upset at me and said that, unlike you, I don't live in a state of constant pessimism. And I thought to myself, do I live in a state of constant pessimism? Maybe. But I also don't live in a state of delusion. And I think for some reason, a lot of people just happen, especially when it comes to the Titans, to live on what I call planet delusion. The national media is completely out of touch with the Titans and completely out of touch with Brian Callahan, but that's fine. They don't care about the Titans. They don't care about Brian Callahan. They don't follow the day-to-day when it comes to the Titans. I saw a graphic that was put up by Adam Schefter yesterday that had all the high-priced free agents after Christian Wilkins got dumped. All the high-priced free agents from the 2024 class that have been cut or aren't very good, or in the case of Kirk Cousins, are sitting on the bench. And I noticed L'Jarius Sneed wasn't on there. I'm like, forgot about one, but that's okay, because when it comes to the Titans, the national media, they don't understand. But today, heard Charles Robinson on with Joe and Paul, and I thought to myself, I was living once again on planet delusion when it came to the Titans. The discussion was Brian Callahan and his ability so far as an NFL head coach.
I guess I need to understand why fans are literally tacking every single thing onto Callahan after one season, being exposed to him for one season. If it is a competency thing, fine. But you need to tell me. You need to tell me, give me the story, give me the anecdote that shows he has no idea what he's doing. Because I got that with Nathaniel Hackett after 1 year. Do you have that with Bill Callahan? Like, I have not heard.
Brian, not Bill, but Bill's here too.
I'm sorry. Brian,
okay.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, Brian Callahan. I have not heard that after 1 year about him. Have you? Like, I'm asking you guys. You're there. You're around it all the time. Is there this anecdote that he just absolutely has no idea what he's doing?
No.
Okay.
He's got he had a bad roster the same way Vrabel had a bad roster his last couple of years, which was his unfortunate undoing.
I heard that and I was shocked. Again, Charles Robinson doesn't even correctly pronounce or correctly name Brian Callahan, called him Bill multiple times before Joe finally stopped him and said, "Oh, you mean Brian? Oh, yeah, Brian, my bad." But Joe and Paul are on essentially the beat. Paul is on the beat. Joe is essentially on the beat. He doesn't cover the team every day at practice anymore, but he talks about them every day on the radio. And they just brush it off like, nope, there's no stories of incompetence around here. Now, let me say this. I am not trying to pile on Brian Callahan. I like Brian Callahan. I want good things for Brian Callahan. I really believe that Brian Callahan in his soul is a good man. And I'm one of those believers that good things should happen to good people. And all of my interactions with Brian Callahan and all accounts of Brian Callahan are that he's a good man. In fact, every time I rip on Callahan, my girlfriend, who met him last year when we ran into each other in the Bahamas, gets mad at me because she loves Brian Callahan, thinks he's a great guy. But at the same time, we have to be objectively honest here. And I hear Charles Robinson, who, again, national media guy, national media people don't follow the Titans. And so he's like, I mean, I've got the stories on Nathaniel Hackett, who's been fired. And when you get fired, the stories come out like Rand sleeping on the plane. But again, he's like, I don't have the stories like I had about Nathaniel Hackett. Are there any stories that you guys have? And Paul and Joe were like, no. It's just a bad team. I heard that and I thought, what? Guffaw. Have there ever been times where Brian Callahan, in the year plus, the 20 months that he's been the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, have there ever been times where Brian Callahan didn't look like he knew what he was doing? And I would say the answer is unequivocally yes. Number one, last season's offseason of toxic positivity, I think, was a massive blunder from a rookie head coach and a truly incompetent general manager. Going on the record and saying things like, Will Levis is everything you want in a QB. I have high expectations for our team. Hyping up every player and every coach for accomplishing exactly, wait for it, nothing. Let me ask you, would Nick Saban have ever done that? Would Nick Saban have gone on bussing with the boys and would have said, I know the national media is not picking us high, but you'll see. Of course not. Number two, not throwing Jeffrey Simmons out of practice when Simmons threw a punch, and then Simmons later that same day publicly embarrassed the franchise with that butt confrontation live on the radio, and it looked like a household where the children have no rules. Even TD was on the program yesterday. He said he told Callahan that was a missed opportunity. I asked Callahan right then and there that day when he got to the podium, I said, hey, why didn't you throw him out of practice? Because the whole thing was a total fiasco. And you can say, well, it's not that big of a deal, Jared, but we're still talking about it today. Number three, week 3 versus Green Bay. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I was sitting in my seats in 99-degree heat, and I could not freaking believe it when the Tennessee Titans, who were getting spanked by the Packers, gained a bunch of garbage yards on 3rd and long, setting up a 4th and 1.5, 4th and 2, and the Titans ran the punt team on, and the fans booed. And I think the fans were booing the offense for stinking, not booing the coach for punting. And Callahan right then and there called timeout and went for it on 4th down and didn't get it. If there is a sign of a head coach who is more in over their head than that desperation, oh, the fans are booing me, timeout, let's do what the fans say, I haven't seen it. Number 4, Callahan's hiring, which should be questioned, and retaining during the season of Colt Anderson, I think showed serious inexperience on his part and an unwillingness during the season to adjust. We all knew by week 2 there needed to be a change as far as the special teams coach was concerned. And there was no urgency, not even after that debacle in Detroit, just excuse making. And 5, finally, the Pee Wee program. Brian Callahan thought long and hard this offseason about what went wrong last year. And he figured, we just didn't have enough fun last year competing in the offseason. And I know that some people are chalking this up as a positive because it hasn't hit them in the face yet. Well, he's doing something. But I chalk it up to Brian Callahan is trying to make something up because he doesn't want to admit the truth that he and his coaches did not hold people accountable last year like grown men. And now he's trying to make up a game to hold people accountable instead of just doing it like a coach should. I'm not, again, doing this to pile on Callahan. I'm doing to push back on the delusion. This idea just, again, that, I don't think Brian Callahan's ever looked in over his head. Really? Week 3 against Green Bay? He called timeout, went for it on 4th down after the fans booed? And on each occasion that I just listed, I have had the exact thought that Charles Robinson referenced, which is Does this guy know what he's doing? When your special teams unit allows 14 expected points, or I should say technically minus 14 expected points, when your special teams gives up 2 touchdowns after having already lost you 2 games by getting 2 punts blocked earlier in the year, it's time to fire the coordinator, not Callahan, because he doesn't do that. So look, Callahan's going to get this season. He's the coach. They're not going to fire him today, and I'm not calling for them to fire him today. And he's going to get a chance to figure it out. And he's going to show us one way or another if he is a competent NFL head coach. But what drives me up a wall is this sentiment that we're pretending like he's already done that. This Charles Robinson, I mean, has he done anything boneheaded so far? Yeah, all of last year and this Pee-wee program this offseason. I mean, come on. Like, it's just, is it not crazy? It's okay to tell the truth. It's like, this is how everybody else operates, apparently. I guess I'm different. Everybody else, I watch it on a daily basis, a daily report card, and my opinion is swayed by what actually happens. Not by who talks to me, not by who I like, not by who I hate, not by who I'm serious about this. Like, I actually watch what happens. And then I have opinions. I like Andrew Burnett. I think he should be fired after last year. Why? Because I watched what happened with a hockey team that never got their ass in gear. So everybody else, it's like they're just, oh, no, he's good, he's good, he's good, he's good. Then once they hit that point of no return, it's like, oh, yeah, he's got to go. Like, no. I mean, it's got to be a sliding scale to get from, hey, this is a good coach, or this was a decent hire, or I think he looks like a good hire, which I did think at the time. And then, oh, he hasn't done anything boneheaded. What? Paul, you cover the team every day. Paul challenges some of the bull crap. Joe, I kind of expect that from. So, again, I'm not saying fire Callahan. I'm not. But this idea that Brian Callahan gets a free pass for all the stupid stuff that happened last year, or this make-believe notion that last year didn't happen, that's ridiculous. No, we're judging him based off of what we know. And as of right now, what we know is not very good. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here if you want to weigh in. And I understand the reputation that Callahan had, that got him the job. I understand that. But take the reputation that got him the job out of it. What has he proven to you or me as a head coach? We'll get to that coming up, and your phones. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. That's 615-737-1025 here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Fireball Hot Take Friday. That means it's time to talk about Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Nothing goes down so smooth and tastes as great as ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. Start your weekend off the right way with Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
around the league, and even just your perception, is Brian Callahan up to a job like this?
I mean, I have to go. Look, no one knocked him going in. Like anyone I spoke to when he got the job, I mean, they thought he was very much worth, that opportunity. And listen, there are good players inside Kansas City that have backed him. Joe Burrow believes in him as a coach. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. There's a number of players there that believe in him as an offensive mind, like that he absolutely can be the high level play caller that can craft an offense similar to what was going on with Kansas City, given the right talent. I don't know that that's necessarily changed. I mean, look, of course, there have been some things, how he reacted toward Will Levis that was very public and on camera and all those things, that does resonate, where it's like people see that and they're like, geez, like maybe that's not the best way to react to a quarterback in a situation where it's very public, it's very visible, you're going to get asked about it, after the game. I didn't have a problem with it at the time. Obviously, criticism piles on when there's not success that ultimately follows it.
That was Charles this morning. And look, I like Charles. I like listening to Charles. I'm not knocking Charles. But, I mean, the one negative thing he said about Callahan was, when he ripped Will Levis on the field for rolling the football on the ground last year, that kind of rubbed people the wrong way. That was what people looked at with Callahan and said, I don't know. I actually thought that was a good thing. So, again, let's discredit the national media when it comes to the Titans. They don't know what they're talking about. Again, I love how I am getting lectured by national media people. Charles Robinson sitting there saying, well, I mean, when he came in, he had a great reputation. So did every coordinator. Every coordinator who gets a head coaching job, for the most part, Mike Vrabel's the exception, but every head coach who got a job as a coordinator gets that job because, as a coordinator, he was great. Adam Gase. Remember, Peyton Manning says a lot of good things about Adam Gase as the offensive coordinator in Denver. But when it comes to Callahan, I have to ask this. As the head coach of the Titans, what does he currently do well? You tell me. I'm going to leave it open to you. What does he do well? Because Charles Robinson couldn't tell you anything. He just said that his reputation from when he got the job was a good reputation. But again, we all know Matt Patricia had a good reputation. Then he went to go be head coach. Josh McDaniels had a good reputation twice. And within 8 months in both stops, everybody there was like, this guy's kind of a clown. And I mean this honestly. Like, I swear to you, I'm not, again, you guys know me. Like, when I think it's time to fire somebody, I'll tell you it's time to fire somebody. I'm not saying that about Callahan. So I'm asking this with total sincerity. What does he do well? I mean, I compare this to Mike Vrabel. And I'm not doing the whole, we got rid of Vrabel for that. I'm not doing that because Vrabel had his faults. But I recognize, even though I'm not the biggest Vrabel guy, I do think Vrabel's a good coach, but I'm not the biggest Vrabel guy. But I recognize what Vrabel does well. I don't get into, the national media falls in love with like the macho stuff from Vrabel. I don't get into that. I think that stuff's a little over the top. The former player mystique and the bull crap. Mike Vrabel is a tireless worker who will read every line of the rule book. Vrabel will motivate his players. He will hold them accountable. That's what he does well. Hiring assistant coaches, not very good. Scheme on the offensive side of the ball and understanding who's good at coaching scheme on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Mike Vrabel is very good. Offensive line play. I don't think Mike Vrabel is very good. So I can tell you all the things Vrabel does well and all the things Vrabel does poorly. What does Callahan do well? I mean, again, his reputation in Cincinnati was, great offensive schemer. But did we see that last year? And I'm, again, honestly asking this. Does he scheme it up super well? Does he get through to the players? Because he didn't get through to Will Levis last year. So don't give me what his reputation is, but I'm serious. What does he do well? The only thing I can come up with through 20 months of him being the head coach of the Titans is that he's nice to the media, which, again, is something that Mike Vrabel wasn't. But I don't know about you guys. Maybe I'm just an old curmudgeon. I don't know. But I need my head coach to be better than just, well, he's nice to the media. What else does he do well? Does he scheme well? Does he hold coaches accountable well? Does he hire good assistant coaches? I'd vote no. Can he get the players to do what he's coaching them to do? And before you all tell me, well, Will Levis sucks, Jared. Number one, Will Levis played better under Mike Vrabel and Tim Kelly. That's just a fact. And number two, Mason Rudolph quarterbacked half the season last year. And I'm not a Mason Rudolph fan. I think he's a bum. But at the same time, Pittsburgh went 3-0 with Mason Rudolph. You didn't. So I need an answer here. I need an answer to what he does well. And here's what bothers me the most. Granted, the YouTube chat is like the most fervent Titans affirmation desiring slimmer of this fan base. Sometimes I even wonder why they listen to the show, because all they want to hear is good stuff. But I'm just reading it and it's just all bad. Oh, Jared's just being negative for the sake of being negative. I'm not being negative for the sake of being negative. I'm being negative because everybody is telling me, oh, no, Brian Callahan's not a bad coach. He didn't do anything wrong last year. It was just a bad roster. That's what Paul said this morning. How can I live on this planet? I watched all of last year. I watched him break down in tears after the Patriot game, and I thought, what in the hell am I looking at? I listened to the summer of toxic positivity. I told you guys then that's what it was. You told me I was a hater then. Yes, you did. So again, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, tell me what he does well. Again, Charles Robinson's opinion is all based off of what his reputation was when he was a coordinator in Cincinnati. Every coordinator of winning teams has a good reputation. But what has he done here? That's all I'm asking for. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025 here if you want to weigh in on the program. Plus, PK said something about practice that I want to get to. And I think it'll be a pervasive thought that I'm just going to give you my experience because that's all I can go off of. We'll get to that coming up next. Fireball Hot Take Friday, 615-737-1025. Hey, tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Charlotte at First Horizon Park. Pregame 6:20. First pitch, 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. And this September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinix Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas in Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org.
off top of your head, the prevailing impressions of this football team so far? You've seen them practice for 2 days.
Well, I mean, the first day was kind of a wash. Yesterday, the offense was bad, which means the defense was good.
It's good. Good defense.
I thought a little bit too much made of kind of the juice and the energy and everything. I heard Derek Mason talking about it, and I understand Derek Mason, what camp was for his Titans and that era. I think things have changed, to a huge degree. And it's not necessarily better, but everything's a ramp up now and acclimatization and all of that. And so I think the context or the construct of early camp kind of limits some of the opportunities for the kind of juice he was looking for. They don't run receivers deep very much in the first couple days because they don't want hamstring strains, and they're not doing exciting things per se.
Okay, that was PK this morning, asked by Joe. Hey, PK, what have you seen out there at practice? Well, let me tell you, it's only been 2 days. You can't really tell anything from practice. Question, then why does Paul go to practice? Like, why does Paul watch practice and cover practice and invest the time? I mean, Paul's probably there on a practice day for 7 hours in the 93-degree heat. What's the point of going to practice and covering practice if it doesn't matter? And I've heard everybody always says this. Oh, it doesn't matter. Practice doesn't matter. Oh, what happens at practice? Early in practice doesn't matter. Late in practice doesn't matter. I've heard the same old spiel for the last handful of years. All I can go off of is my own experience. And I will tell you, I have the text pulled up right now. This is my best friend's dad. My best friend since like the first day of preschool. This text is from July 29th, 2023 at 11:44 a.m. And you have to remember that I am a Titans fan and that when speaking casually and not on the air as a radio analyst, I will say things like us and we, because that is my team. Distinguished gentlemen, I have not given up the Titans as my team. That is my team. And on July 29th, which was a Saturday, in fact, I remember I went to the Green Hills Mall right after practice. On July 29th of 2023, I got in my car after practice was over, and I texted my best friend's dad and said, quote, they haven't put the pads on, but our offensive line is horrible. He replied with, oh, no. That was the year with Dillard and Brewer, and Skoronski is a rookie who was terrible. It's a little bit better last year. I think it's been overstated how much better Skoronski was. No right tackle because they thought PT was going to be their guy. And Nate Davis, or what was left of Nate Davis, or no, I think maybe Nate Davis had been gone at that point. I think Brunskill was the right guard. And I remember that third day of practice. And I walked out of there and I said, this offensive line sucks. Again, all the Paul Kaharskis, all the beat guys are telling me, Jared, they haven't even put on the pads. Jared, it's the third day of practice. Freaking Vrabel was trying to sell it. Vrabel was like, well, I mean, I think that the defense always starts off ahead of the offense. I mean, I think Dillard's doing great in the meeting rooms. So all I can tell you is this, my experience. Bad is bad. There is nobody who plays poorly on the practice field who all of a sudden goes out in the games and dominates. Now, there are some guys that you may not see much on the practice field because they're kind of taking a smoke break, but you're not going to see somebody be awful on the practice field and then go out there and turn into Terrell Owens. It's just not going to happen. Bad is bad. Now, there are some guys like Chigakonkwo and Traylon Burks who are very good on the practice field, and then when the game starts, they're not very good. I can't explain it. I don't understand, but I'll just tell you, in my experience, a lot of people just want to ignore bad at practice because, well, Jared, it's just practice. Did you see what J.J. Watt tweeted out? J.J. Watt says practice doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm going to venture to guess Ask JJ how he played at practice. Hey, JJ, were you good in practice? Oh, you were. Oh, okay. Let me tell you who was great in practice. Danico Autry was great in practice. Let me tell you who was good in the games. Danico Autry was good in the games. Again, I've never seen a player in my 10 years of covering the Titans. I have never seen a player who is bad in practice who is good in the games. I've never seen it. Correct me if I'm wrong. 615-737-1025. Our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I probably took a little too long to get to the text messages because we got a lot of them. Coy in Clarksville says, Brian Callahan sounds like someone who wants to be a leader, but he ran his pep talk through Chat GPT. I wonder if a lot of you guys don't actually, use AI, Chat GPT, because that's not really how Chat GPT works. If you were going to make a Chat GPT joke, I think the thing I would say is, if he was using Chat GPT, he'd be sitting there saying, we got a great defense. We got Logan Ryan and Christian Fulton and Jayon Brown. Because Chat GPT, you ask Chat GPT specific things about sports teams and stuff like that, and it'll give you that. But, this idea that, Callahan just got it through Chat GPT, I would agree with you. Sometimes I think Callahan's trying to be something he's not. Like when we played that cut of him, with his backwards hat on, trying to motivate the team for whatever that's worth. I do think it's funny. Somebody says into the YouTube chat, they say, it's not true that all we want to hear is good stuff. I don't want to hear just good stuff, but every day with you, it's always bad stuff. Brother, your team is the worst team in the NFL. Your team, with their president of football operations and general manager, just held a press conference. And at that press conference, they told you all, we stink. They didn't say it, but they said it. I'm just telling you, this is a bad team. And when I hear delusional things, I get angry because sometimes I just don't feel like people are living in reality. When I hear Charles Robinson sitting there talking about, I haven't heard that Callahan's done anything crazy. I haven't heard any of that. I'm like, you don't remember when he didn't throw Jeffrey Simmons out of practice and everybody sat there and said, he didn't throw Simmons. I was on the sideline that day. Everybody's on the sideline. We're like, is he going to throw him out? He didn't throw him out. He's just going to let Simmons throw this tantrum out here and not really going to do anything about it. And, it's just kind of how things are, I guess, around here. Make of that what you will. 615-737-1025. One texter into the text line says, one texter into the text line says, practice is important, but we all know that this is the second day. Again, I go back to it. I knew in 2023 on the third day. I'm not saying that. What bothers me is it feels like in practice season, all I ever hear is something happens that's bad, and it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't count. Something happens that's good, it's like, oh, see? And again, like I said, I don't understand it. I've never seen a guy play poorly in practice and play good in the games. I have seen guys play well in practice and not play well in the games for a multitude of reasons. One guy a couple of years ago that had a great training camp was Marcus Johnson. I don't know if you guys remember him. He played wide receiver. And Marcus Johnson had a good game during the season. He got hurt at the end of training camp, came back, had a great game, I think, against New Orleans, and then got hurt again, and we never heard from Marcus Johnson. Marcus Johnson was not a bad player. He just could never stay healthy. But I've never seen a guy who's consistently bad in practice who's good in the games. I'll never forget Caleb Farley. Boy, talk about practice bullcrap. One time Farley got burned over and over again by Tampa Bay. And I started to realize, I was sitting there thinking, Farley might suck. I remember Joe was claiming that he was battling for a starting spot. I'm like, Joe, he's terrible. Like, he's getting burned by Racy McMath every day. And then the Buccaneers came in, and it was Scotty Miller and some guy I had never heard of who got cut as soon. Lance Smith, I think, was the guy's name. And he got cut as soon as the game was over. But he burned Farley. And I asked Vrabel about it, and Vrabel was like, well, he was just so excited for practice that he couldn't fall asleep on time. I said, you got to be kidding me. But that's what happens with practice. So 615-737-1025. We're back to your phones next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
The energy that I felt when you guys came back in the building. I feel your confidence. I feel your excitement, right? Our execution, our effort, and our elimination of sins, right? That's the Titans trio. You want to see execution, You want to see unbelievable effort, and you want to see a team that plays a clean brand of football. Those are the things that we're focused on. What I get motivated by is the way that you guys came into work today. That's what motivates me. That's what gets me excited, because I know what we have in this room, because I believe in what you guys are capable of. And when you come in the building and you wake up in the morning, that's what should get you going, is that you know you got a group of guys in here that have put a ton of time and effort into it, and that we're going to be a team that plays hard and makes life hell for any team we play, because we are capable of being a damn good football team. How many days until we play our first game? Anybody know? 47 days. So we should feel the urgency every time we walk in. It should be urgent as shit. We have to make each other better every day we step out.
We've got to be urgent. We got to have that energy. I felt that energy. D-Mace goes to the first day of practice. Didn't feel that energy. Well, yeah, but that's because it was the ramp-up period. That doesn't count. Got it. Okay. Back to your phones on Callahan. One texter says, every time I say Callahan's a good guy, everybody gets mad at me. I'm like, he is a good guy. Ship from Mount Juliet says, a good guy still needs to win. That means nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. If Callahan wasn't a good guy, I think they probably would have fired him after last year. That I'm going to give him credit for, and I think that if Vrabel had Callahan's bedside manner after the ass kickings that Callahan received last year, Vrabel would have kept his job for at least one more season. Randy says 5 of the 4 things are coach propaganda and BS Callahan is spewing. I took it as Charles Robinson was more referring to on-the-field coaching, game planning, and player development. The Green Bay game was the only example of actual coaching players. That's how I interpreted the Charles Robinson comments. So, again, Charles Robinson said, like, what boneheaded things did Brian Callahan do? What boneheaded things? Because I've got boneheaded stories with Nathaniel Hackett. Number one, the bonehead stories usually come out after somebody gets fired. Again, when did Paul Kaharski write the story that Rand Carthon slept on the plane and didn't stay for all of Will Levis's pro day? The day he got fired. That's when all that stuff comes out. Secondly, I don't know how you cannot see the way he treated the special teams coach last year. You know, after the Lions game, getting up there saying, no, he's a good coach, and not think that that was boneheaded coaching. I'm sorry. I don't know how you could do that. Ben says, as somebody who used to determine competency for enlisted military members trying to transition to become military officers, if you are incompetent, you don't suddenly become competent. Well, so I don't know if I want to say if Callahan's incompetent as a coach. I'm not ready to throw that label on him yet. I mean, again, we talk about the boneheaded things. Rand did the boneheaded things a lot quicker and a lot more obviously than Callahan. I mean, remember when Rand got on the media the second night of the draft in 2023 because they were asking all these questions about Tajay Spears' knee and Will Levis, and they were just doing their jobs. And Rand was like, you know, be positive, media. This is the best night of their lives. And even Vrabel had to refute him. That's really, really, like that for me. I remember watching that press conference on my phone, like in my living room at my house, watching Rand do the, you know, this doesn't always have to be so negative between us. You know, these kids, they're watching these press conferences. This might be the best day of their lives. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't think this guy knows what his job is. I mean, these people he's talking to, like, this is Teresa Walker. She's in a Hall of Fame. Paul Kaharski been doing this for 30 years. And these are real big league media people. That's like a little league Arkansas Tech type of mentality. And so Callahan hasn't done that. But, I mean, there have been some serious bonehead moments. One texter says, Callahan calls plays well. I'm not sure, but does he? And don't do this thing that like some of the Twitter bozos do, where they'll pull up a play where a guy's running open, and they're like, see, because you can do that with Todd Downing. Like, I remember watching Todd Downing's tape. The Titans played on the road at Indianapolis. It was a game they lost, and I remember watching the tape, and seeing Ryan Tannehill miss open guys and thinking to myself, well, if Tannehill just knew to go there. And Derek said to me, he's like, dude, there's always somebody open on every play. Teams take away options. And so somebody's going to be open. And so it's the job of the quarterback to say, like, okay, like, I think they're going to take this option away, so I think that's going to be open. But is Callahan like a good play caller? I have a hard time when it comes to play calling with coaches of saying they're good or bad. I'll never forget Arthur Smith in 2019. They played on the road at Carolina. They weren't doing very well, and Derrick Henry got 2 touches in the first half. And people were just bagging on Arthur Smith. And I said that day, I go, okay, I'm out of it. I have no opinion on this. I have no opinion on play calling. But Floyd wants to defend Arthur Smith. And Floyd defended Arthur Smith tooth and nail, and the phone's lit up. And so I'm like, all right, I'll let you argue with him. I'm out of this. And so the callers argued with Floyd, and I stayed out of it. And then like 3 months later, when Arthur Smith had it rolling, just like absolutely rolling, he was like, and you wanted to get on him. I'm like, I didn't say anything. I stayed out of it. So I don't want to do like the, is he a good play caller? Is he not? Kind of thing. The one thing I will say is this. When it came to Arthur Smith, and he was the offensive coordinator of the Titans, and I think he's the best offensive coordinator. In fact, trying to think off the top of my head, I think he might be the only really, really good offensive coordinator the Titans have had. I don't want to crack on Mike Heimerdinger. May he rest in peace. But it's really been a hodgepodge of suck as far as the Titans offensive coordinator history is concerned. But with Arthur Smith, when he had it rolling, I remember I used to be 2-3 times a game. I'd be like, wow. Like, wow. I haven't had that with Callahan. I mean, that's the one thing I just, like, there's a wow. And I did not see that last year. And is that all Will Levis's fault? I mean, I guess, if it makes you feel better. One texter says, Brian Callahan's speech to the team sounded like a preacher at a megachurch. I think I've been to a megachurch one time. Granted, I'm not Christian, but I think I've been to a megachurch one time. It was for a funeral, unfortunately, out in Antioch. And man, those things are huge. I'm like, this thing is like a stadium. One texter says, Brian Callahan was way in over his head last year. He tried to take on too much, and it showed. He should have tried being a head coach first instead of being an offensive coordinator and head coach. I like the guy, but as a coach, I'm not sure he has what it takes to be the head coach of a football team. Coaching is a results-based job. No matter how nice or likable the guy is, if he doesn't produce, then he stinks. I agree. You know what I can't get over, and I know that, I don't know if this is like petty or I don't know what the right way to say this is, because it angers me so much. I am still offended by the way Mike Mularkey was treated, both by the team and by the fans. Like, they fired Mike Mularkey because he wasn't John Robinson's guy. He did everything you could have asked. He got to the divisional round of the playoffs. They ran into Tom Brady and the Patriots and lost. My God, what a felony. And he got fired the next day. The divisional round of the playoffs in his second year. And the fans, when he got fired, the fans were like, yeah! And I remember thinking, are you people stupid? Like, we just lived through Ken Wisenhunt and Mike Munchak, and we are celebrating the firing of Mike Mularkey. Are you kidding me? And so when I hear people say things like, hey, coaching is a results-based job, I'm like, except if you're Mike Mularkey. And I still have a rod up my ass about that, and I don't know why. I heard Louis Riddick today wagging the finger in defense of Callahan when he was on the midday show, and he was like, if they fire him because he's not their guy, then they're not as smart as they think they are. And I immediately thought of John Robinson. Because I'm like, I think he made, not that Vrabel wasn't a good hire, he was, but I thought that was a total, like, I know all when they fired Mularkey and the way I was just ridiculous. ridiculous. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025, if you want to weigh in. Coming up next, I heard the Midday Show asking the question, what's a successful season for Cam Ward? And people have texted and they're like, if Cam throws for this many yards, or I want to see Cam do this, or I want to see Cam do that, or I want to see Cam. We need to have a discussion. And the discussion is not what is a successful season for Cam Ward. I'm not doing that. But it is a discussion that I think needs to be had about every discussion that will try to define success for Cam Ward. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So I wasn't on the midday show for the transition today, and it was because Adam Vinkin texted me, and he said, hey, we may be going to break late here, so if we have you on, it won't be for long. I was like, just get on 2 o'clock. And I don't know exactly what they were talking about or why they went to break late. I have no idea. But I almost wonder if it's because they had so much reaction from what I saw the title of their show was today. What defines a successful season for Cam Ward? I don't know what they said. I'm sure it was great. And I know that is a very entertaining topic, and I know that's something that a lot of people have opinions on and want to weigh in on. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying this to crap on them. I'm telling you this right now. It's a great radio topic, but I'm not sure I can do it. And I'll tell you why I don't think I can do it. At the root of the question, which is, what is a successful season for Cam Ward? I mean, like, yeah, if they win the Super Bowl, that is subjectively a very successful season. But I don't really know how to give you the answer you're looking for. You're looking for an objective. There is no area of, you want a true definition of a successful season. And I just don't think that works for rookie quarterbacks. For instance, last year, Caleb Williams threw for 3,500 plus yards, threw for 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Jaden Daniels threw for 3,500 plus yards, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. The difference statistically between the two quarterbacks was 27 yards in favor of Jaden Daniels, 5 touchdowns in favor of Jaden Daniels, 3 interceptions in favor of Caleb Williams. And yet I've got everybody telling me that Jaden Daniels is the next great NFL quarterback. And I've got Colin Cowherd saying yesterday that we'll know if Caleb Williams is a bust by October. The difference between the two, again, was 27 yards. That's the difference. Well, the stats don't paint the whole picture. It just felt different with Jaden Daniels than it did with Caleb Williams, I'll say. But what does define whether or not you have a successful season? And does that even matter? Vince Young was Rookie of the Year. Did it matter long term? Jaden Daniels got to the NFC Championship game. And I'm of the belief, like many people and many of you, that Jaden Daniels is on his way to being a franchise quarterback. But Mark Sanchez made it to the AFC Championship game his rookie year too. Well, Jaden Daniels won games last year. Caleb Williams didn't. Was that Caleb's fault? Caleb's defense was awful. Caleb's coach was awful. And if winning games is what defines a successful season for a quarterback, then why is everybody crapping on Sam Darnold all the time? He won 14 games. Well, Jared, he won 14 games with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Right. And a year before that, with Kirk Cousins and a bunch of Scarbinis for the second half of the year, they won 7 games. So when you ask the question of what would define a successful season, I'm like, I can't get there. There's not some sort of magic formula that defines success for a quarterback and whether or not the guy's going to be a franchise QB, which is what you guys really want to know. What you really want to know is you really want to walk away at the end of the season and say, franchise quarterback. And I'm here to tell you right now, there is no objective formula after one season that defines whether or not somebody is going to be a franchise quarterback or not. Again, I think Jaden Daniels is great. But the difference statistically between him and Caleb Williams was 27 yards. And 2 in the touchdown to interception category. Again, how do you feel about Caleb? How do you feel about Jaden? Well, he's a winner, Jared. Sam Darnold won. Don't like him. So what happens is it just depends on how your gut feel of that quarterback is. And then you'll make the excuse of if Cam doesn't win games, you'll say, well, the team around him sucks. And there may be some validity in that. Absolutely. But there's a reason why there's this big argument surrounding how good or not Jalen Hurts is. Because at the end of the day, unless you're Joe Burrow, where you take a crap franchise to the Super Bowl and you go to the AFC Championship game the next year and you throw for 5,000 yards and you throw for 49 touchdowns and you're lighting up every team and you're the one guy who can beat Mahomes, unless you're that, there's no real way to say, okay, well, that's a successful quarterback and that's not. Well, is it the cast around him? I mean, the cast around somebody always matters. It mattered with Troy Aikman. It mattered with Joe Montana. Is it the coaching? Well, when Steve Young was in Tampa Bay, it wasn't very good. Steve Young gets with Bill Walsh. Now he's under George Seifert at the 49ers. And he's winning Super Bowls or a Super Bowl and headed to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Again, your question of what will define success for Cam Ward is really, Jared, how do I know at the end of this year that Cam Ward is my guy, the franchise quarterback? There's no way to know. Drake May didn't do anything last year. I mean, even in that Titan game, Drake May had that unbelievable play. Remember? Right there at the end of regulation, Drake May turned the ball over 3 times. That's why they lost. Drake May was 3 of 9. He threw for 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Nothing special. And yet talk to the people up there and they're like, we got our guy. We just need Vrabel and we need to surround him with talent. So what I've decided is there is no answer to that question. What is a successful year for Cam Ward? I don't know. I don't know what would define success. Sometimes when it comes to quarterbacks, you know it when you see it. But for the most part, I've learned this with Vince Young. Even if you're great as a rookie, it doesn't mean you're going to be a Hall of Famer. And even if you stink as a rookie, it doesn't mean that you're destined to be awful. For me, I guess I would define success of if Cam Ward is winning games in the fourth quarter for the Titans. If Cam Ward is keeping you competitive in games in the fourth quarter for the Titans. But at the same time, I don't know how he's going to do that with no tight end, with a so-so running game, with one receiver, and with a bad defense, and probably a bad coach. But if you're looking for some sort of objective formula that says, hey, Cam Ward had a successful year, anything short of him throwing for 4,000 yards and 39 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and getting the Titans to the divisional round of the playoffs, which, again, wasn't good enough for Mike Mularkey, but getting to the divisional round of the playoffs, just a true slam dunk. Mahomes' first year as a starter in 2018. Anything short of that, there's no way to know if he's going to be the guy or not. 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us next. Should I put him on the hot seat and ask him what a successful season for Cam Ward will be? Give me an objective successful season, even though I believe there is no answer to that. I don't know. Hey, this week's Nashville's best deal is Eastside Bowl in Madison. Eastside Bowl is a vintage bowling alley, music venue, lounge, and arcade designed by locals for locals. Get 2 hours of bowl plus shoe rentals for up to 6 people for just $45 while supplies last. Go to theGameNational.com/deals to get yours today. In for player interviews and the latest updates on the Titans and training camp as the team preps for the 2025-2026 season. Coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Messero and 12 South and Parman Energy Group. My phone must be listening to me because I just said, we talked about defining success for Cam Ward. Apparently yesterday, Good Morning Football had a tweet. Blank will define Cam Ward's season. Manti Te'o said resilience. If anybody knows anything about resilience, I guess it's him. And then some guy with a beard, don't know who that is, said, Bill Callahan. I guess we're still doing that, eh? So with that, Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us on the program. Corey, I want a completely objective, completely logical, completely ironclad demarcation for success for Cam Ward as a rookie quarterback. Anything above it means he's good. Anything below it means he's bad. What is it?
Oh, gosh. Man, I had an answer for you until you just put it in those terms. I'd like to say he's the Titans quarterback for all 17 games. That's where it would start for me. He plays all 17 games. He's healthy. He's good enough to be out there. There's no reason to sit him down. I think that's a great start to see a Titans quarterback play 17 games.
Okay, Corey Curtis says the line of demarcation is 17 games. So if Cam Ward plays 17 games this season, you're going to say franchise quarterback.
Well, I'm going to feel a lot better than if he plays 12. That's for sure.
I'm just really trying to trap you. I don't think there really is an answer to this. I think it's a total trick question kind of thing. But I think that's where we are right now after the press conference the Titans had this week, Corey. I just don't think there's a lot of hope going on around right here. And so Titans fans are going to try to come up with something that they can look forward to this season to give them hope. What do you think about the situation the Titans and their fans find themselves in?
Well, I think they're snake bit after last year, number one. I think nobody wants to, get stuck with the banana in the tailpipe and fall, fall for last year, like, hey, we're going to be good. We're going to be competitive. I think everyone feels safer just saying things are terrible. And if they do anything good, it's a bonus. Okay. I think that is number one, with where fans are at. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, they're a construction site and, there are levels of success this year. If they stabilize the offensive line, it is a success. If they're able to protect the quarterback, then it's a success. If Cam Ward shows that he is a franchise quarterback, then that can be a success. They've still got loads of other things to work on. Where is the pass rush going to come from? I have no idea. Are the young DBs going to develop? That still remains to be seen. But they've got a lot of questions to answer beyond winning and losing games. And that's where I'm like a horrible person to talk to, because I don't always base everything on wins and losses.
Corey, I heard Charles Robinson on with Joe and Paul this morning, and they asked him if Callahan was a good coach. And he said, are there any stories of any of boneheaded things that Callahan's done? And Joe and Paul said, no, it's just bad roster. And I'm like, excuse me, the Green Bay game last year when he ran the offense back out there after calling timeout because the fans booed when he sent the punt team out there, the Colt Anderson experiment, the Pee Wee program he's implemented this year, none of those qualify as boneheaded. But I digress on that front to say, when it comes to Callahan, this is the question I have for people who cover him on a daily basis. What does he do well? What through 20 months of covering Brian Callahan can you say that he as a head coach does well?
Well, I think this summer he's shown the ability to change and to try to do things differently and acknowledge that what he did last year didn't work. Because we've seen head coaches who will continue to do the same thing over and over again. So I think it's important to acknowledge, hey, this didn't work last year. So I think his ability to self-scout and admit flaws and move forward are good things.
I disagree with this.
You don't think he's changed at all?
Well, you're talking about the Pee Wee program, right?
Well, I'm talking about everything. He fired the special.
Who's the defensive coordinator?
It's Denard Wilson, but he fired the special teams coordinator and brought somebody else in. Did he not?
Kicking and screaming.
Okay, I don't care if it's kicking or screaming or not. He did it. And
the offensive coordinator is the same. The defensive coordinator is the same.
Well, he's the offensive coordinator.
They allowed 90. They allowed 90. I guess it's technically 90 minus 90 expected points on defense last year. That's awful. And yesterday he's up there talking about how they're going to scheme pressure this year.
Yeah, that's tough to believe.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same bull crap.
Well,
with the Pee Wee program behind it.
It's not all the same. And by the way, you thought Mike Mularkey was a good football coach, did you not?
Very good football coach.
He did much the same thing when he took over the Titans. Much the same thing. He made the first year all about competition all the time. And he did that.
But what did he do the first year that people got mad about at the time, but I think absolutely was the single most important thing that any coach could have done at that time? The first thing he did was he held Taylor Lewan accountable by stripping the captaincy from him. Yep. So nobody was going to question Mike Mularkey's authority. And the
That
second
was
thing he
actually when
did,
he was the interim coach.
and the second thing he did was he turned around and he handed the ball to DeMarco Murray about 30 times a game because he knew that the best way to bring up a young quarterback, even though the fans hated it, was to turn around and hand the ball off.
And I think that was one of Brian's big mistakes last year. Was not that the offensive line was going to be a lot better running the ball than they were protecting, but they were better suited to run the football last year. And Will wasn't ready to throw it 35 times a game. That was pretty clear. Tony Pollard the best player on the offense?
Ridley might have been, between the two, he or Ridley, pick a choice, whatever.
But, especially when you've got, did we see 2 times where they ran through 4 straight passes from the 1?
Oh, yeah, against Detroit.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, was it a boneheaded scenario, that would be one where that was kind of cringeworthy.
There was so much bad in that football game that I can't even – that totally escaped me.
Yeah, but I expect to see growth in all those things this year, and we'll see. You go back to the Jacksonville game, he can't throw the ball for Will when Chig's wide open. He's got the play. It's just got to be executed. We're going to find out one way or another, this year. We're going to see, the growth in the position and see if it's there or not. Look, if you brought in Vince Lombardi, this team's not winning the Super Bowl this year. So we'll see what they've got on the offensive line. We'll see what they've got at quarterback, and we'll see what they've got at head coach.
See, to me, that's not exactly the argument about how they wouldn't win the Super Bowl with Lombardi. I wonder how many games they would have won last year with Lombardi, because I bet it would have been more than 3. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where I'm like,
that's why they're so focused on erasing mistakes, because they beat themselves. If they just cut down on mistakes, self-inflicted mistakes, they win 5 or 6 games last year. But they were busy not just letting the other teams be, they were beating themselves. And so and that's one thing that Mike Vrabel did a really good job of. But he also took over a veteran team that was well coached, in the first place, that didn't commit a lot of penalties. But it does. Penalties is not a skill thing. All right, that's attention to detail, that's practice, that's discipline, and that's something that you can work on no matter who your players are. And so I think they've recognized that, and that's what's a big part of their competitive program is eliminating mistakes. They'll win more games if they're not the least penalized team in the league anymore.
I like my name for it more, the Pee Wee program.
Pee Wee football? Okay.
Because that's what a Pee Wee coach would do. Who wants orange slices? Your team wins. Here's some lollipops.
Do we do orange slices anymore? I thought it was just popsicles now.
I don't know. You've been a youth sports parent, probably in the
yeah. Your time is coming, brother.
I know. We're not there yet. We're not even technically crawling yet. So we're not. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball there. Fireball Hot Take Friday was actually, before I get to your hot take, what have you noticed through your practice observations so far?
I'm going to say it's hard right now because they haven't done a lot to stretch the field, offensively. Some of the things that I've seen that I've liked, I do like Dan Moore from an athletic perspective. I think he's got nice feet, and I think he's athletic out there on the left side. And I'm anxious to see if he can be the guy for them, because I think physically I understand why he's on the left and why Latham's on the right side when I watch him. So I kind of like what I've seen there. I think Kevin Winston, like if you had a football beauty contest, Kevin Winston and Alec Iamainer would both be in the final 5.
Where would Oladejo be?
Oladejo, you know what? He's more of the action figure physique. He looks like he should have a cape. Okay, those guys look like they're football beauty contest winners. They absolutely look smart. And Kevin Winston made a hell of a play yesterday. It was an aggressive play on the football. That was really good to see. So of the few highlights I've seen, that was nicely done by him.
By the way, somebody in the YouTube chat just said Jaron liking Mike Mularkey is hilarious. That dude sucked as a head coach. He won. He won games. He took the worst team in the league and they won, Corey.
Yep. Won a playoff game.
It doesn't matter. Fans don't care.
No.
They don't care. They think that, see, that's where I think this is kind of criminal, is that unless she fires Brian Callahan in the middle of next season, Brian Callahan is going to get as long as Mike Mularkey. And no disrespect to Callahan, but people don't give Mularkey credit for the job he did here. Okay, what's your hot take this week?
Well, okay, with Will Levis, I do not understand the uproar at all. Look, ideally, you're talking about a guy who never takes another snap for the Tennessee Titans. Fans don't want it, and the team, when they drafted Cam Ward, said, ideally, Will, you never take another snap for us, all right? What is everybody so upset about? I mean,
he did quit on the team.
He didn't quit on the team. If he quit on the team, he would have had the surgery as soon as Cam was drafted, but he didn't. He worked through the summer, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's not supposed to play, okay? He's not supposed to play. You don't want him to play. They don't want him to play. The fans don't want him to play. But now that he has surgery, everybody's all upset with him. The guy can't do anything right, all right? Get healthy. Put yourself in position to be helpful.
I'm going to agree with you that it does not matter. And it does one way or another. Plus, I think Brandon Allen was going to be the backup quarterback anyway.
Yes, you have said that for a long time.
Regardless of what people thought of Levis, or I just don't. I mean, so I agree with you for the most part. That said, number one, I think the reason the Titans didn't try to trade Levis is because he wouldn't have passed the physical. That's the number one. You know, It's like, oh, hey, we trade him for a 6th round pick, but if we send him to Pittsburgh takes a look at the physical, they're going to flunk him, and he's going to come back to you anyways.
So you take the summer, try to get healthy, and if you're healthy at camp, then play, and we'll see if we can flip you.
I think that if he was going to be the backup quarterback, I think that he probably would have passed on the surgery. I know if he was going to be the starting quarterback, he would have passed on the surgery.
Oh, absolutely. But
that's
even if he was going to be the backup, I don't know, because he's got to put himself in position for next year. He's got to be in position for his next team. And I know people say, well, this is your team. I mean, they're not his team, okay? They drafted somebody over him. He's done. He's got to be worried about what's next.
And again, if he has the surgery, there's not going to be any questions to whether or not he can pass physical next year if they try to trade him.
Yeah.
Corey Curtis, News 2, with us as always on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Great stuff, Corey. We'll talk soon.
All right, I'll bring the orange slices.
There you go, Corey Curtis. He's the expert. Actually, I want popsicles. He's the expert on youth sports, at least in my life now. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Callahan, Louis Riddick. Boy, was he wagging the finger. Now, there was a little bit of truth in what he said, but I think the whole Callahan thing is a lot simpler than every pundit is trying to make it. We'll get to that coming up next. First, though, let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You'll win a pair of tickets to see live with Collective Soul at First Bank Amphitheater on Sunday, August 10th. So good luck on that. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC tech, and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you didn't need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, it is. The reality is they'll have to find something to fix so they can cover the cost for those discounted club memberships. I mean, $29 for a tune-up, that doesn't even pay for the gas, for the guy to go to your home and come back. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you absolutely do not need. You hear me talking all the time about my friends at Hiller, but this is in particular is why I trust them in my home. Such proud supporters, the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call that fish truck today.
I would hope that the current regime does not automatically just look at him and be looking for reasons to fire him so they can just bring in quote unquote their guy. Because whenever you do that kind of stuff, whenever you just kind of automatically in your head have this ain't my guy, I'm just looking for my guy. See, first of all, you're already kind of like thinking that you're smarter than you probably really are. And you think you have all the answers when you really don't, because nobody really does. Instead of just taking it as it comes and taking it organically and trusting the fact that, look, the people who were there before him and a lot of other people who weren't even associated with Tennessee would tell you that Coach Callahan is a damn good coach. Okay. And we all know that success and failure is always on a razor's edge in the NFL. And it isn't just on one thing. There are plenty of things that can screw that up. And a lot of times it's the people up top who think they know every damn thing are the ones who are screwing it up. So just let him, give him the resources, objectively evaluate it. And as if you are seeing progression up front, balance, Cam looks more comfortable. The team is playing a winning style of football. To get to your part about the defense is playing winning football, meaning they're not just getting run through, having, time of possession totally out of whack to where you can't even get your young quarterback on the ball, on the field. They're turning the football over at a reasonable rate. Then I think this should be one of those building development seasons to where you go, okay, we've established the foundation. We brought a lot of new people in here. Let's see what 2026 brings.
Okay, that was Louis Riddick, and I agree with some of that. But it did feel like a big finger wag where he's sitting there saying, they sit there and they just want to fire Brian Callahan. That's a bad idea. I agree. Now, I think we all know that the NFL is rampant in what I call MGS, my guy syndrome. And my guy syndrome is Sean Payton getting to the Broncos, giving Russell half a season and saying, get him out, get me my guy. In comes Bo Nix. And sometimes my guy syndrome works. Sometimes it's John Robinson getting rid of Mike Mularkey after he wins a playoff game because he's not my guy. That's how the NFL works. I agree. They should not fire Callahan for the sake of firing Callahan. But I also kind of hate the fact that there needs to be a preconceived notion as to what's going to happen with Brian Callahan. I heard Joe and Paul talking about that in reaction to this Louis Riddick clip earlier this morning, and they were talking about, well, it would just be so bad for Cam Ward if they changed the coach. The best thing for Cam Ward would be if Brian Callahan stays the coach. And I hear that, and I think to myself, well, not if Brian Callahan is a crappy coach. If Brian Callahan is a bad coach, then you are best off moving on and getting a good coach in here. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. But it also has happened before. Jared Goff got drafted by the Rams with Jeff Fisher as the coach, and everybody thought he was a bust. In comes Sean McVay, and now they're headed to the Super Bowl. Again, not saying that Callahan is for sure going to get fired or not. I just would ask everybody this question. Can we watch the season? Because I've got a pretty good idea that if we watch the season, if it's a well-managed football team, I think we'll all know it. I hope. Then again, when Mike Mularkey was the coach, you all hated him, and he was a good coach. But if it's not a well-managed football team, and we're seeing games like Indianapolis on the road last year, where the Colts with a quarterback who couldn't throw are running for 350 yards right up the middle, then I think we'll know that the Titans need a new coach. If Cam Ward is throwing interceptions in the middle of the field the way he threw an interception in the middle of the field yesterday and almost threw another interception in the middle of the field, if he's doing that consistently in the regular season, then I think you'll know that you need a better coach. Say what you want about the Patriots and say what you want about Vrabel. I'm not the biggest Vrabel guy in the world, and I would not, and I like Vrabel. I think Vrabel's a good coach, but I'm not sure Vrabel's the right coach for a team with a young quarterback. But give them credit. They watched the season with Gerard Mayo as coach and realized, yeah, this guy can't coach. And I give them credit for that. But I am so tired of this preconceived notion that, well, Brian Callahan better be back as coach next year. I don't know. Maybe let's let him prove to us that he can coach. Like, let's watch him coach. And after we watch him coach, then let's make a determination as to whether or not he's a good coach. Now, I will say this, that when it comes to Brinker, I mean, even if he isn't Callahan, or even if Callahan isn't his guy, again, we all remember my guy syndrome. It should be noted that Brinker took his pants off. I mean, unbuttoned them, dropped them. They were hanging around his ankles when he was talking about Callahan at the press conference on Tuesday. But we also have to remember that this is Chad Brinker, who said the same things about Rand Carthon. We also have to remember that Chad Brinker hired Brian Callahan, and then, kind of at the beginning of the year when Chad got elevated to the top dog spot, kind of wasn't as committal on how much he believed in him as a coach. So, again, I'm not sitting here telling you that Callahan should be fired. Are there a lot of red flags for me when it comes to Callahan in the first 20 months of the job? Absolutely. Absolutely, there are red flags. It's not just all Rand Carthon's fault, though. He absolutely was dealt a bad general manager. He was completely over his skis last year with Jalen Duncan at right tackle. When he's up there saying things like, I think Jalen Duncan's got the traits at the, oh my God. Like, we all watch Jalen Duncan. But let's watch the season, and if Callahan stinks, then get rid of him. But if he doesn't, then I'll sit here and say, hey, Callahan impressed me this year. Because I certainly am betting against him. Rooting for him, good man, but betting against him. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Kaharski, there's something Kaharski said today that I actually have been looking for the right way to describe it, and then he said it, and I thought, you know what? He is so hit the nail on the head. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Hey, Cam, hey, you remember what I told you yesterday? Remember when I told you yesterday doing this stretch? I said I was going to get 5 sacks. I told you what going to happen.
Jeff, I heard he's a big smack talker guy, so there's going to be some words exchanged.
There's nobody that wants to win on our football team more than Jeff does.
The chirping back and forth, those are the things that you love in football, right?
Hey, you look good in 7-on-7.
But you can tell he's doing it from a sense of, hey, I wanted to see if this young buck is what he's really made of.
As much as Jeff likes to talk during practice, I think we found out that we have another guy that likes to talk probably just as much.
We're going to talk smack each day, all day.
Jeff,
oh, I love it.
What's it, do you?
It's competition.
What's the point of playing something that you love you can't have fun with?
Bantering competitively and having fun and enjoying playing football, which is the best part of it.
Some of the stuff I can't say what we be saying out there on the field. And we talking smack to each other. Callie giving a call.
A little bit of a long call, Cam, stay with me. When I'm calling him play, he's doing all he's doing. He's listening to everything I'm telling him. And he enters right into the huddle when he calls play and doesn't script play call. And so I asked him after practice, and I said, just help me out here. Do you need me to wait till you finish? And he goes, no. He goes, I'm listening.
But he hearing the call while he talking smack to me and gave the call and threw a bomb to Red. So
with that sort of competitiveness, it ramps up the energy of the entire practice. And I think all the other guys respond in turn.
Back talk at practice. That's going to be what puts us over the top. So that was on that Titans behind the scenes show they did. And I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, oh God, we're going to sit here and do a whole 5 minutes on here's why talking smack at practice is going to make a difference in winning us and losing us games. You know, it reminds me of when I used to work with Floyd and I'd say something stupid and he'd just go, okay. Like, that's how I feel when it's like, okay. Talk about smack talking on the field. Now, let's worry about things that matter. Like blocking technique. Like, let's worry about the things that matter. Like, let's make sure we're getting a play call in on time. You know, that way we don't get those penalties when the games happen. Because as much as they may care about minus 3 points for Gryffindor here, they're going to care a little bit more when it's minus 5 yards for Tennessee in week 4. That's it. When it came to all the smack talk and the energy and the juice and the everything else, I knew it was foolish, but there was something about it that I just couldn't put my finger on. Again, embracing smack talk. And then Paul addressed it this morning, and I thought Paul spelled it out perfectly. He took the words that I was looking for, and I feel like this is kind of, hey, Paul never agrees with anything that I think. I very rarely agree with anything he thinks. So if we're agreeing on something, it must be the case. Here's what Paul said about all the smack talk that the Titans are all excited about.
Yeah, I think some of the loudness has gotten performative.
Sure.
From Jeff in particular. Like,
I knew you were going to.
Well,
so I can't believe
I'm going to be loud.
There's no way we were going to get through this first segment without you ripping Jeff. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to be loud, and that's me leading.
Right.
You know, that was the theme of minicamp. So I don't particularly care if there's noise in that fashion. I mean, I care if there's communicative noise in terms of guys making sure they're in the right spot or reviewing things or whatever.
Ding, 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 ding. I heard that and I was like, oh my God, that's it. Every time I hear the Titans talk about smack talk, I'm like, oh man, Jeff and Cam, they talk so much smack out there at training camp. I'm like, who gives a flying rat's ass? Like, who cares? And now Brian Callahan's trying to sell to you all, the fans, that the smack talking is going to make a difference in a good way for the football team. And it's like, again, like Paul said, it's all performative, especially from Simmons. It's all bull crap. It's all just fake stuff that doesn't matter. And I heard that and I'm like, that's so true. When it comes to being loud and having juice at practice, Arden Key is considered to be the loudest smack talker maybe in the NFL. And Arden Key kind of sucks. So it doesn't make you a good player. Paul's right. What I worry about more is like, hey, are these guys getting lined up right? When it comes to, being vocal, is Cam being vocal with receivers? Say, hey, I need you here. Hey, on the protection, I need you there. I need that vocal, not I'm gonna bust you. Ha ha, that's great. And it is rather performative. And it kind of takes me back to something that's been bothering me a little bit with Cam, which is it feels like all the things that people say that are good about Cam Ward are all just, he's a bulldog and he's a hard worker and he shows up at 5 a.m. and he talks smack to Jeffrey Simmons and he's got a great attitude and he's got a, and I'm like, but can we start talking about some tangible things that Cam's doing that's impressing you? I saw Rand Carthon on SiriusXM NFL Radio. By the way, I do SiriusXM NFL Radio all the time, or SiriusXM Mad Dog Radio, and I'm always talking to guys off NFL Radio. And I just know that one of these producers that doesn't know is going to book Rand on my show. It's like, that's going to be a little awkward. But again, Rand was on NFL Radio, and he was talking about how he's like, the fact that Cam can go out there and talk smack with Jeffrey Simmons and Arden Key shows that he's a leader. And I'm like, that doesn't show me anything. Like, show me Cam throwing a 38-yard pass to Traylon Burks, and they connected on it, and it was a big gain. And show me Cam not checking it down to Tajay Spears. Show me Cam saying, yeah, he's really learned the protections, and he's really learned the calls, and he's really learned the, like, show me that. Because that's the stuff that matters. The other stuff, that's just talking. And it seems like with the Titans, Joe Morgan, Hall of Fame baseball player, once said during a World Series broadcast, you can talk the talk if you can walk the walk. And for me, I've always been more concerned with people and teams that walk the walk than I am with teams that talk the talk. It feels like the Titans the last couple of years have been more worried about talking the talk. And then when they don't walk the walk, it's somebody else's fault. Case in point, Simmons. One texter says, you know as well as any other athlete that smack talk on a team creates a bond in a competitive environment that makes players better. As Floyd used to say to me. Okay. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. You think that. 615-737-1025. So, I got a college football thought on what has proven to be, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. I didn't say it was going to, but I knew it was going to happen. And not only did I know it's going to happen, but I think now we all have our answer about the hierarchy of college football, regardless of what anybody else tells you. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Company 1025, 106 for the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So, you know, I don't like conference media days very much. I think they're kind of foolish. Again, it's a big press conference, and the commissioner talks, and then all the coaches talk, and then there's, you know, a player or two that might be interesting, and all, you know, every Tom, Dick, and Harry from, you know, Raging Cajun radio down in Louisiana goes out there, and it's like, okay, talk about a barnyard musical. But that's okay. I at least kind of understand their purpose. They're to get the message out there. And the SEC does their media days as well as anybody. The SEC basically dictates when they go. We go when nothing's going on in sports. We go before the NFL comes back for training camp. We go while baseball is on hiatus with the All-Star game. That's when we go. No basketball, no hockey, nothing. Now, Caitlin Clark might be something we have to worry about, but other than that, it's all our real estate all the time. The Big Ten has recently posed a threat to the SEC. The SEC and the Big Ten, as far as deciding what the future of the college football playoff is technically on equal footing. They are the two that decide. The Big Ten, shockingly, has a television contract in which they make more money on a yearly basis than the SEC does. The Big Ten has won the last two national championships. There's actually some thought that the SEC was starting to lose ground atop their perch of kings of college football. I never believed that. But some people were starting to think that. Chris Childers, and I love Childers, but Chris Childers on SiriusXM College Sports Radio, he told me at CMA Fest that Greg Sankey knows he's losing his power and the Big Ten is taking over. That the Big Ten has more rich boosters than the SEC does. I also am not sure I totally believe that, but okay. So the Big Ten had their conference media days this week. Did you notice? And that's part of what makes the Big Ten Conference and what their media show was this week. And they turned it into a complete and total clown show. The commissioner, for instance, will not back down from his wildly unpopular 4-4-2-2 model that the SEC, the one with the real vote, has said no to. The one that Notre Dame has said not interested. The one that the ACC and the Big 12 have said pass. They still double and triple down. And all the coaches got up there and complained about how the SEC only plays 8 conference games and they have to play 9 conference games and it's not fair. And I guess that might be a legitimate gripe, but that's not a gripe that anybody really cares about. That is not a gripe that any fan at home, unless you're just a big Penn State lover, is sitting there saying, yeah, I really care that the SEC plays 8 games and the Big Ten plays 9 games. And I thought the clown show of a media day performance ended perfectly with James Franklin openly complaining about the conference's decision to have their media days in Vegas and how it does not compare at all to the SEC. Here's what James Franklin had to say.
A lot of our beat writers did not come to this because they couldn't afford to get out here. And the majority of our teams are near Chicago, where this used to always be. The majority of our teams are near Indianapolis, where this used to be. And it creates a different environment. I walk around the lobby. I don't see any signage. I don't see anything for the Big Ten. I don't see people getting autographs. I don't see it's a different vibe and it's a different feeling. I think that other conference, when they have their meetings, there's essentially a press conference every single day at the end of the meetings. It keeps people talking about that conference at a time of the year and makes them relevant. We're not doing that. We need to be talking about the Big Ten and our programs and the things that we have done and making it as accessible to everybody as we possibly can and connecting with the fans. And don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I think Vegas is a special place, and I think they run events as well as anybody. But it's a different feeling.
I'm not crapping on Vegas. I want you to know my angst is with 10. That's what Franklin just said. The other conference, they got people getting autographs at media days. The other conference, they've got press conferences and the message is getting out. And our media days, we don't even have signage in the lobby. What a clown show, James Franklin is saying. And I'm going to tell you what my big takeaway from the two conference media days are, again, of the two conferences that hold power in college football. One is organized. One is prepared. One articulates their points and is confident in their decisions and positions. And the other conference, they're careless. They're sloppy. They don't have any real semblance of order behind the curtain. That's why I brought up James Franklin's comments laying into the Big Ten's decision to hold media days in Vegas. Because just going after the conference the way that Franklin did, again, he made sure, hey, I'm not saying anything about Vegas. Vegas does it great. They did great. They do great when it comes to events and everything. I'm talking about us. We stink. The media appeal of their media days, the visibility of their conference in that particular city. James Franklin basically said, we're stupid for doing this. And who is that really a shot at? Again, he wants you to know it's not a shot at the city of Vegas. It's a shot at the league. It's a shot at the commissioner. And not one SEC coach would dare say something like that at SEC media days because they know, oh, we're going to get it from Greg Sankey if we do that. And that's the differences between the conference. Greg Sankey's got the respect of his coaches. He's got the respect of his chancellors, of his presidents. He's got the respect of the TV partners he deals with. I'm not even the biggest Greg Sankey fan in the world, and he's got my respect. There is a reason that the Big Ten is so enamored with the 4-4-2-2 playoff model, and it's because their TV contracts, which, again, they make a lot of money from, are really, really bad at the end of the day for CBS and NBC. And they know that at some point, CBS and NBC are both going to stop paying $350 million each for a combined 6 of the top 50 games. Last year, of the top 50 college football games on TV, CBS and NBC, for a combined $700 million, had 6 of the top 50 games. Meanwhile, ABC, who pays $300 million, so less than half of what CBS and NBC are paying for 6 of the top 50, ESPN, ABC had 34. So Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, has the TV networks mad at him, coaches mad at him, and who knows what those chancellors and presidents think. And like a mobster trying to make his bones, Petitti does not have any major wins in his column. He didn't pull USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. Kevin Warren did that. He didn't negotiate their mega TV deals. Kevin Warren did. And by the way, Kevin Warren did it haphazardly, where the Big Ten had to write a check and give money back to Fox because they gave away things they didn't have. Careless, sloppy. I didn't need Pat Forty to report the other day that a source said that Tony Petitti has, quote, lost the room and was, quote, way out over his skis. Isn't it obvious? In the span of the month, the Big Ten went from the public image they were starting to build of a conference that was on par and a threat to the top of college football by making more money from their TV contracts than the SEC and winning the last 2 national championships. And they have turned into a complete and total joke of a conference with everybody angry at them and nobody listening to what they're campaigning for. They spent a whole week campaigning for the 4-4-2 playoff model and a whole week campaigning for the SEC to play 9 conference games, and nobody heard it, and nobody cares. Guess what? In that other conference, which is what they kept saying at Big Ten Media Days this week. You didn't know that because you weren't keeping up with it because nobody was paying attention to the Big Ten. But in that other conference, it really does just mean more. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus, coming up next, I do not make the kind of money that these TV executives, who I guess they've spent their whole life in television. I mean, corporate America, Wall Street's involved. They got to wear a suit and tie to work every day. They have probably private drivers. And I think they're morons. We'll get to that next. Stillman Company, 1025, 106 to the game. Let's talk Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Again, it goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to start a weekend, and this week has felt like a long week. There's no better way to start off a weekend than with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Get it going. Again, there's only so many weeks of summer left, and there's only so many weekends of summer left. So ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Look, I think the play-in weekend, like I'm only again going to speak for the Big Ten, but you send some teams out there do or die games, knowing that they have to win to make sure they're safe. Like there could be some really great matchups around our championship game. That's a great weekend. for college football. Like, the best way to market the sport is to play more good games.
That's
So you can talk
exactly
about all the
right.
advertising campaigns you want. You can talk about all the slogans and all the promotion and everybody talking. But at the end of the day, what fans really care about is, like, put more good games in front of them, and they'll definitely watch.
That was Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner. And I got to say, I think this 4-4-2-2 thing is so stupid. I'm glad that everyone sniffed it out for how stupid it is. Again, we want the play-in games, right, so we can give NBC and CBS something because the games we give them stink. But this is what you would have gotten. Third-seeded Indiana would have played sixth-seeded Iowa. Fourth-seeded Ohio State would have played fifth-seeded Illinois. Boy, that's a good one right there. Ohio State, Illinois. Connor, get the boys. We're going out to wherever the hell they'd play that game. We're gonna camp out. Hopefully we can get tickets to the Ohio State, Illinois play-in game. No, the Indiana, Iowa play-in game.
Oh, 3-0 final score.
I was gonna say they might score a touchdown. Boy, that's what we really want. So I have to get this off my chest. I know that it's training camp, and I'm sure a lot of people have tuned in to listen to me bitch about the Titans, and I understand that. And I'll get back to the Titans here in just a second. But there's something I do not understand. These people that make these huge decisions. Let's use Tony Petitti as an example. The commissioner of the Big Ten. My guess is he goes to work every day. He wears a suit and a tie. He's got a secretary. He's probably got his own legal counsel on staff. He's got his own comms guy, probably has a personal driver. How many private planes do you think Tony Petitti flies on in a given year? 100? Same with the guys that run CBS and the same with the guys that run NBC. Again, I think I'm doing pretty well for myself, but I'm not flying private everywhere I go. I wear a suit like 5 times a year. And I certainly don't have a private driver. And yet, I think it's fair to say that some of these executives might be some of the stupidest people in all of television. For instance, in 2020, CBS passed on what ABC ended up paying the SEC $300 million a year to broadcast the SEC Game of the Week. So remember the old Gary Danielson, Vern Lundquist game, Brad Nessler later, but Alabama versus LSU and the kick six with Auburn. And again, you know it, big matchup. It's on CBS. Saban versus Joe Burrow. That was $300 million. They said, no, we're okay. ABC bought it up. CBS now pays $350 million for the second and third Big Ten game of the week. So instead of Alabama LSU, instead of Alabama Auburn in the Iron Bowl, instead of Florida Georgia every year, instead of every meaningful LSU game when they're really, really good, instead of getting games that feature, now I know Texas wasn't in the league at that point, but a big Texas versus Georgia game. CBS this year has Nevada at Penn State week 1, Oklahoma State at Oregon week 2, USC at Purdue week 3, Michigan at Nebraska week 4, and later in the year they get Iowa at Nebraska. I'm sorry, but those games suck. And NBC, for the exact same amount of money, gets virtually the same slate. And not only that, but when NBC signed their deal with the Big Ten, they were under the impression that meant, hey, we're going to get Ohio State, we're going to get Michigan, we're going to get Penn State, we're going to get Oregon, we're going to get USC. And then they said, yeah, actually, Ohio State doesn't play at night, Penn State doesn't play at night, Michigan doesn't play at night. They don't play at night. Says who? Yeah, that's kind of the tradition, and they're not willing to do it. Maybe if they go on the road to Oregon, they'll play at night, but they're not really interested. Like the idea of getting the horseshoe filled up for a night, yeah, nah, they're not going to do that. That's a terrible television contract. That is terrible. That is horrible business. You just gave up Alabama versus Texas. You just gave up LSU versus Georgia. You just gave up Tennessee versus Florida. You just gave up all these great games every year to get Michigan at Nebraska. Meanwhile, there's news that came out this week, again, from Wall Street, because that's where some of these decisions are made, that NBC is thinking of starting a TV sports network. Gee, when was the last time they had one of those? They're thinking of starting a TV sports network. Remember, they shut down NBCSN in like 2021 when they lost the NHL deal. They're thinking of starting a TV network for all the NBA games that they bought up because they bought them for Peacock. Because apparently NBC thought they could pay $2.45 billion a year, put a bunch of games on Peacock, and that people would say, well, I guess I got to buy Peacock now to stream regular season NBA games. Whoever thought that is a moron and should be fired. I kept saying last year when all the drama was going down and ESPN was going to re-up with the NBA and TNT was suing the NBA because they were getting more money from NBC and Amazon. And I'm like, how? How is the NBA getting all this money? They're losing all these viewers. What's going on here? And there was an article at Awful Announcing. It said NBC already has buyer's remorse over their NBA deal. It hasn't even started yet. I mean, are these people that run these now, are they stupid? Like, why do they have private drivers? Like, why are they flying charter flights? I can tell you right now, I can sit there in a meeting and I can tell you, all right, if we don't pay $300 million for the SEC game of the week, what's our backup option? Well, our backup option is to pay $350 million for the second Big Ten game every week. Okay, what does the second Big Ten game look like on a weekly basis? It looks like Iowa at Nebraska. Yeah, we'll pay the $300 million. I mean, I don't understand how you couldn't keep the Pac-12 alive. How they just say, hey, USC, UCLA, you guys stay put, and we'll pay the $350 million, and you guys can keep most of it. We'll pay the $350 million to put the best Pac-12 game on, because the best Pac-12 game is absolutely going to be better than the second best Big Ten game. And some weeks we get the third best Big Ten game. How do these people make all this money? I think this is like when we see moron coaches and moron GMs in the NFL. It's like, wow, this guy is at the top and he's an idiot. I need to know who it was at CBS and NBC pulled the trigger on those Big Ten TV contracts. Because I need to take advantage of those people too. Like, I need to figure out who is negotiating NBC's TV deals. Because I need to take advantage of them. I will give you the Jared Stillman show. I'll do 4 hours a day. We'll put it on your new TV network. And I'd like $50 million a year. I think they get more bang for their buck for me for $50 million than they will for Iowa and Nebraska for $350 million. Regular season NBA games for $2.45 billion. I think you'll get more out of Jared Stillman at $50 million than you will out of those deals. Who are these doofuses that are making these decisions? I don't know. Or why don't I have those jobs? I mean, again, everybody thinks they can do my job, and I know most people can't. They just sit here and talk to yourself for 4 hours a day about the same thing over and over again. I know it sounds like you can do it. Well, I host a podcast. We tape 18 minutes 3 times a week. I know that a lot of people think they can do everybody else's job. I didn't, when Lindsay gave birth, my son was born, I didn't walk in there and say, hey, I can deliver the baby. So I'm not one of these people that thinks I can do every job. I can run CBS's sports department better than CBS can. I can tell you that right now. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe and Paul co-signed today on something that I so completely and totally disagree with, and I think is totally unfair. And in fact, I guess you could say it's unfair. It might be too fair. I don't know the right way to say this, but we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
I guess I need to understand why fans are literally tacking every single thing onto Callahan after one season, being exposed to him for one season. If it is a competency thing, fine. But you need to tell me. You need to tell me. Give me the story. Give me the anecdote that shows he has no idea what he's doing. Because I got that with Nathaniel Hackett after 1 year. Do you have that with Bill Callahan? Like I have not heard
Brian, not Bill, but Bill's here too.
I'm sorry, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, Brian Callahan. I have not heard that after 1 year about him. Have you? Like I'm asking you guys. You're there. You're around it all the time. Is there this anecdote that he just absolutely has no idea what he's doing?
No.
Okay.
He's got he had a bad roster the same way Rabel had a bad roster his last couple of years, which was his unfortunate undoing.
I was taking my pug to daycare this morning, And as I heard Paul Kaharski utter that, I literally said, my jaw dropped, and I said, what? What? Now, let me get over the first part here. Yes, the Titans roster was a bad roster. They did not have a right tackle last year, although Brian Callahan, I think, is a little culpable for that. You know, I told him the day he took the job, the right tackle story. I'm like, hey, you probably need a right tackle. And then at the combine, he's like, I think Nicholas Petit-Frere and Jalen Duncan, I think they can do it. And I'm like, wow, man, you must think you're a great coach. Like, you must think you are freaking the Gipper. You must think you're Vince Lombardi because you think you can coach Jalen Duncan into a starting right tackle. Good for you. But I could not disagree more with what PK said there. I disagree with the fact where, again, Charles Robinson is like, you know, can you think of anything that Brian Callahan did that made it look like he was in over his skis? And Paul and Joe are like, no. But when Paul's like, no, it's a bad roster. The same thing that did in Vrabel is the same thing that did in Callahan. I could not believe it. Yes, the roster's bad. But Callahan's problem might be that he's not a good coach in any regard. When you say something like what Paul just said, you know, again, I think that he's just simplifying it, saying like, he's not as incompetent as Rand Carthon was, where it's clear he had no clue what he was doing, but it's really a bad roster. To me, you're absolving Callahan and you're absolving Vrabel of complete and total blame. Let's use Vrabel as the example here. Because I know Callahan's your coach right now, so people get a rod up their ass when it comes to Callahan. So let's move him off to the side for a second. I think we understand Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is a good head coach. And Mike Vrabel is going to win some games, I think, in New England. Now, that is not the team that I would have put him with. I would not have put him with a young quarterback. I probably would have put him in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. Dallas. Now, Jerry would never do that, but Dallas, that would have been the perfect fit for Vrabel. A young quarterback, I'm not so sure of. Because we know Vrabel's problems. Vrabel's voice runs thin after a while. You know, you can only be chief a-hole for so long. Then it eventually runs out. Vrabel is not good at putting a coaching staff together. I think we can all agree on that. Vrabel is disrespectful to the owner. It's not just disrespectful to the media. Joe and Diana Rossini wrote a piece about it when Vrabel got fired, that after those New England comments, Amy was waiting for Vrabel to call her to say, hey, I wasn't meaning any of that. And Vrabel didn't feel like he needed to do it. Felt like assuring the owner that he wasn't taking a crack at her was beneath him. I've seen the downfall with Vrabel. And I think the downfall with Vrabel, as I told the people in Boston, they don't want to believe it, but I told them, I said, the things that he does well. He's smart. He's a hard worker. He's organized. He'll sleep in the office. It's just like Bill Belichick. The problems with Vrabel, they're the same as Bill Belichick. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else and thinks he can be a total a-hole because he's so great and everybody's lucky to be around him, including the owner. Whereas, again, was Belichick in his prime before he lost his fastball? Was he probably a good coach? Yeah, he probably was a good coach. Was he this unbelievable super genius that was so diabolical that, no, he had Tom Brady, who fell into his lap with the 199th pick. Just like Vrabel. He's a good coach. He worked hard. He lucked into Arthur Smith, whom he only hired because Matt LaFleur was trying to take him to Green Bay. Ryan Tannehill, who they traded for to be a backup, and Derrick Henry, who they spent 3/4 of the year of that first year Vrabel was the coach on the bench. So we know the pros and the cons with Vrabel. He's smart. He reads the rule book in and out. He's dedicated. He pushes people. He holds them accountable. But we also know with Vrabel there are some problems. Craig Aukerman, anybody? Well, we were third in the league in net punting. Oh, yeah, I'm sure you were. To just dismiss what happened to Vrabel and to just dismiss what happened to Callahan last year as, well, it was a bad roster, I think is completely unfair. And it's unfair not to the coach. I think it's more than fair to the coach. I think it's unfair to reality, to the truth. Again, I'm not exactly sure what Brian Callahan even does well. What did you think of Brian Callahan's coaching staff last year? Again, I know we can complain about the roster and you can blame Will Levis, whom he inherited, but he said was a big reason that he took the job. I know we can blame that all on somebody else. But whose fault was it that they got a punt block the first 2 weeks of the season? Did they not have the players on the roster to be able to protect the punter? Whose fault was it? Did they allow Khalif Raymond to go crazy returning punts in Detroit? Oh, it was the same guy that let the punts get blocked the first 2 weeks and they did nothing about it. Again, they lost a game at home that they were never competitive in which Malik Willis played quarterback for the other team. And you're going to tell me that it was a bad roster? And that was it? Give me a break. Even for Paul. I remember when Brian Callahan put this coaching staff together. And I'll say this about assistant coaches. I don't know anything about assistant coaches for the most part. I give them the benefit of the doubt, again, for the most part. And then if they look like they don't know what they're doing, then they probably stink. But Frank Bush and Tracy Rocker had been on the Titans coaching staff in the past. And when they got hired, Paul said, can't he do a little bit better than Frank Bush? No, these coaches are great. So Paul already knew going into last year that Frank Bush wasn't a very good coach. And yet, here he is today, just saying, no, it was a bad roster. I mean, they had a bad roster, and Barry Switzer winning a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys, I think is proof that if you have the right players, if you have Aikman and Emmett and Irvin and Russell Maryland and that Cowboy offensive line, if you've got those kind of players, you can win. I mean, bad coaches. Ken Wisenhunt got to a Super Bowl as the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. It's possible. But to just look at last year's team and to say, oh, bad roster, I think is totally ridiculous. And not only that, it's like I said to Corey Curtis earlier today. He said Vince Lombardi wouldn't have won the Super Bowl with that team last year. I don't disagree. That team sucked. That team had no right tackle. But would Vince Lombardi have won 3 games? Would Vince Lombardi have looked at the roster and said, my dad can coach up PT? Or would Vince Lombardi have said, we probably need a right tackle? And that doesn't mean that Callahan can't learn from his mistakes last year and be a better coach this year. Totally possible. But when I heard that with like, hey, are there any stories that Callahan where it looks like he's in over his head? Instead of saying, week 3 against Green Bay last year, it was 4th and short. Callahan sent the punt team on. The fans booed. Callahan called timeout, went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. The first day of pads last year, Jeffrey Simmons threw a punch, and Brian Callahan didn't do anything about it. Nope, we just say, it was the roster. And I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. And I think Joe and Paul are better than that. Like, I think they're critical people. I think that they are thorough and thoughtful analysts. I think they're better than that. And I just think that idea of, it's just bad roster, that is awful. Terrible. 615-737-1025 here on the program, 615-737-1025. There is a Vrabel story. If you want to get to that, I'm going to let you choose. You want a Vrabel story, or do you want my advice for Brian Callahan? The one thing, because again, people are like, Jared, you're just negative. Here's what Brian Callahan should absolutely, positively do. And if he's listening and does it, nobody will give me credit for it because I never get credit for anything. So do you want to hear that, or do you want to hear the Vrabel story? Well, you'll choose next. Stillman and Company, 105 The Game.
Mike, you called the 5 weeks over the summer. I think one of the most important parts, the most important part of the offseason. Just now the guys are back. I know there's 90 of them, but generally speaking, 91, excuse me, international pathway. How'd they do? How do you feel about how the guys came back?
I mean, whether you were in a coma when I answered Tom's question, or typing on your phone or tweeting, I don't know, but I spent 5 minutes answering that question. And I can go back through it, but I'd rather not. We won't know. We did pretty good on the linear run test. which they practiced. They know what it was going to be. The big thing will come when they're in line contact. I mean, and you're sitting there, you're wrestling with a guy, and then the D lineman's rushing. He almost gets to the quarterback, or we're telling him to plant and run and go sprint to the football and then go do it again. Or we're asking Kyle Williams to go run a post, and he didn't get the ball, but he wanted to get the ball, but he didn't. Can he run back, get set, know what to do the next play? That's really where we'll see. So I'll be able to answer that question again, hopefully only once in a few days.
They are lapping it up. I mean, they just love it. And you know what? Hey, who am I to rain on their parade? But I was listening to Boston radio. They were talking about Vrabel first day of practice, and everything when it comes to Vrabel is just like, Vrabel is no nonsense, and Vrabel, is putting the players first, and Vrabel is setting the tone, and Vrabel is telling Ben Volen, holding him accountable. And Vrabel, he's just a leader. He's just so much better than Rob Mayo. Vrabel, and then I hear Greg Bedard. If you remember Greg Bedard, he's the one that put out that story. A lot of people think it probably came from Vrabel. He's the one that put out that rumor that the NFL made the Titans hire Rand Carthon as a minority. Again, I don't know if it's true. I had him on the show, asked him about it. His explanation was very, very bad. But again, I was listening to him, and he was talking about the first day of practice and about the fact that Will Campbell, the left tackle, got beat for a sack. Morgan Moses, the right tackle, got beat for 2 sacks. Morgan Moses got taken out. They put in one of his replacements. He gave up a sack. The offensive line was bad in pass protection the first day of training camp. Now, again, everybody always tells you when it's the opening day, it's just the first day. Here was the headline. Patriots camp report. Pass protection starts off slow and drill-heavy opening day. Not much to be gleaned from that practice. Offense in the second practice worked on quick game and screens. Blah, 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 blah. Pass protection wasn't very good. Boy. Where have I heard that before from Mike Vrabel? It took everything in me not to say, well, I bet Jason Hodeling, who's on the coaching staff, I bet he'll fix it. I mean, between him and Todd Downing, who is their wide receivers coach, I mean, you've got a bunch of geniuses on the Vrabel coaching staff. And this is what I am so excited to see. And maybe I'll be wrong about this. Maybe Mike Vrabel will learn from his mistakes and he will hire better coaches, and Downing as a receivers coach instead of a coordinator, he'll be better. And because he's got McDaniels there, it'll be a buffer. They got a real coach calling the plays. They have a real offensive line coach in Doug Marrone. Even though Hodeling's there and he's a total bozo, maybe it'll work out for him. I don't know. But I am just ready for the first time the Patriots lose one of those Vrabel special games and Vrabel gets ants up his craw for the media questioning something like when the Titans media questioned the trainers after all the injuries, or like when the Titans media questioned in 2020, when they had something like 180 minus expected points on defense. And everyone kept saying, who's calling the plays on defense? And Vrabel every time, I don't want to talk about that. Who cares who called the play? No matter. I mean, if they could flip on Belichick after he won 6 Super Bowls, you think the leash is going to be very long for Mike Vrabel? So I'm ready for it. Again, they're lapping it up. They love it right now. They are just, they're like, yes, Vrabel, yes. And I know some of you can't enjoy this because you're too upset about the fact that your team fired Vrabel when I'm telling you it was obvious Vrabel needed to go. Even TD said it after the fact. I asked him, I said, TD, do you think it was the right decision to move on from Vrabel? And TD said, look, voices get tired. It's kind of funny to me that Harold Landry was the one last year who was up there saying, guys can be themselves this year. And now Harold Landry is playing for Vrabel. But I hear them talk about things like, well, Harold Landry, he's going to go in there and make a difference. I'm like, sure. So lap it up now. Vrabel gets on a reporter. Ha 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 ha. I mean, hey, it's funny. I remember when Vrabel was getting on my ass, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is so good for the radio show. But at the end of the day, Vrabel's going to run into the same problems he ran in here. And that is that Vrabel thinks his poop doesn't smell. And there are just certain towns where they let you get away with more. Don't want to call anybody out, but Nashville is one of those towns. Boston is not. And I know Vrabel, he ain't going to change. So if he put Todd Downing on his coaching staff, that tells you all you need to know, in my opinion, about Mike Vrabel and the Patriots and what's going to happen up there. And not only that, for some reason, they spent a bunch of money in free agency. I'm not even sure the players they got are really all that good. Yes, Harold Landry is not that good anymore. Stephon Diggs, he's older. Everyone keeps getting rid of him. But, hey, maybe Diggs is good. They had no receivers last year. But, I mean, people think they're going to win 9 games. People think this team may go to the playoffs. I don't see 9 wins. Not with Todd Downing on the coaching staff. Not unless Jason Hodeling's figured something out. And by the sounds of what went down on the first day of practice, doesn't sound like he has. 615-737-1025. Chad Withrow joins us next on the program. His thoughts on what we're hearing after the first week of Titans practice. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. And it feels like it's been a long week. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, why does it feel like it's been such a long week? And I don't know if it's because, football's back or something like that, or maybe if it's because there's just been so much news with there being football back, at least practice being back. And I was thinking about this, on Tuesday, we had the reality. On Monday, I think this is right. I think my timing is right. On Monday, we had the story that Will Levis was essentially opting out of the 2025 NFL season. Now, Corey Curtis was on earlier today, and I completely agree with him that it doesn't really make a difference in this upcoming season. I think Levis was going to be the third-string quarterback behind Brandon Allen anyways, so that doesn't really bother me, but I did feel like he was quitting on the team. So that was Monday, and that was a big story. Then on Tuesday, Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi met with the media, and on Tuesday, they basically told you this team's not going to be very good. Fans, be patient. We got a lot of work to do on the roster. Then on Wednesday, they had their first day of practice. Cam Ward spoke with the media. Then on Thursday, they had their second day of practice. And I heard Connor in the update, who was at practice. I wasn't at practice. I've been sick all week. But I did hear Connor in the update talk about Cam Ward had an up and down day as far as practice was concerned the other day. And I'm like, has it been up and down? It just sounds like talking to everybody that it's been kind of more down. But that we shouldn't read too much into it because it's only been 2 practices. But that's a lot of information to go through in the span of a week. And so I keep thinking back to what we've learned this week, and it's that right now, Titans fans are at a point where when it comes to this upcoming season, it's really about 2 things. It's about Callahan and Cam Ward. And they go hand in hand, but it's really just about those 2 things. Brinker and Borgonzi have told you don't worry about winning or losing because they're not going to do a lot of winning. There's not really any other interesting players on the team. Can this guy develop into a star? Can that guy? It's Ward. And when it comes to Callahan, some people want to be overly optimistic. I think some people want to be honest. He's on the hot seat. Chad Withrow joins us now on the program from Outkick, as he always does on a Friday. So, Chad, let's start here. The week starts with the Will Levis news. We'll get to that in a little bit. But then Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi tell the fans, be patient. And when Big Joe asked them, hey, do you think the team you put on the field can win the Super Bowl? They chuckled. And finally, Mike Borgonzi said, well, that's always the goal, but we got a lot of work to do on the roster. So with that being said, if you are a Titan fan, what is the excitement for this upcoming season? What is there to look forward to this year?
Seeing the new stadium. I know it's not this season, but next season maybe. Look, the excitement is Cam Ward. I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know what this Titans team can do to sell anyone on anything other than you drafted a quarterback number 1 overall, and hopefully he's going to be the savior of the franchise. Because there's not been a lot of good done by this team in recent years, whether it be in the draft and free agency or anywhere else. So I just don't think that there is a lot of eyes on. Here's a good example. I have a good friend who was going to go to Titans practice yesterday, and they said, who should I be watching out for in practice? And I was really at a loss. I'm thinking, watch Cam Ward and see how the coaches interact with the players, but there's just no one to get that excited about right now. Maybe that player emerges, but yeah, it's all about the quarterback right now for the Titans because it's hard to have a lot of hope based on them getting rid of Mike Vrabel and then what it's been like since that happened. Mike Vrabel's at least interesting. He's snapping at reporters. That was fun to watch. That was a nice flash in the past also. But there's just not a lot there. I'm having a hard time answering the question because really the only answer to me is Cam Ward. I don't think Brian Callahan's that interesting in watching him this year because I just don't have a lot of faith in this team or this organization right now in the direction they've been heading.
Here's what bothers me about the Callahan thing. So I feel like I am one person on an island when it comes to fairly assessing Callahan. I listened to Charles Robinson this morning on with Paul and Joe, and he asked them, like, hey, have there been any kind of boneheaded things Callahan's done? And they're like, no, he just had a bad roster last year. And I'm like, that is so not true. Like, yeah, they had a bad roster last year, but I mean, the special teams last year during the season, anybody remember that? Anybody remember against Green Bay when Malik Willis came in here and crushed them? That Callahan got booed by the fans, so he called timeout, went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. I mean, it was obvious Callahan looked in over his head last year. And they're just like, yeah, no, it's just a bad roster. And I feel like I'm the only person in town who's saying, what does Callahan do well, and looking for an answer? And other than be nice to the media, Chad, I don't know of anything at this point that he's demonstrated that he does well. Do you?
No, and I think that what's concerning to me about Callahan, and I know that we've talked a little bit about it, he's got a little Butch Jones to him, and I just keep having these alarm bells going off every time I hear him speak, that there's some Butch Jones there. I don't think he's a terrible coach. I don't think he did a terrible job a year ago. He didn't do a good job. So he's 0 for 1 because that's his 1 year and 1 opportunity as a head coach. I just think it's really hard, Jared, because I'm constantly comparing the Titans, not just to the current league, but to the Titans of the previous 7 or 8 years and the Titans under Mike Vrabel. And whether you loved or hated Mike Vrabel, I knew what Mike Vrabel was.
Yeah.
I knew what the Titans were going to be. Yeah, he had a rough last season and a half, no doubt about it. And he wasn't completely innocent in getting himself fired. But I felt like he was a good coach. I still feel like he's a good coach. I felt like as long as he was there, the Titans were headed in the right direction eventually, as long as, you know, they were having sound managerial decisions being made and a good GM. I just don't – it's hard to get a sense of what the Titans are unless Cam Ward comes in and completely saves their bacon.
What do you make of the fact that the Titans brass got up on Tuesday and basically went to the wall for Callahan? Both Brinker and Borgonzi, who was not here when Callahan got hired. Some people think that's a sign that, hey, they're going to stick with Callahan no matter what, because it would be detrimental to Cam Ward for them to fire him after 1 year. What do you make of it?
I mean, I think that's what they're going to say because they're all in the same foxhole right now together, and they're all going to speak glowingly of each other. I can't really take much away from it, and I have watched the question from Big Joe and the answers from those guys, and I mean, their reaction tells you everything that you need to know, right? Like they know the score. They know what they're in for. They know that this roster is not good enough, and they couldn't even with a straight face just say, yeah, we have a chance. And go to there's plenty of examples of teams that no one expected much from that did something. Hell, Washington a year ago, I could point to and say they were in the NFC Championship game, and no one was expecting much from them. I mean, they could easily try to sell you on optimism that this is a team that if all breaks right could contend, but they didn't because they know how bad the team is. So, yeah, I just look at this group as they're all in it together right now. If this thing goes south in a hurry, if Cam Ward looks really bad, they're all going to do their own private little politicking behind the scenes to try to look like the one that's least culpable for whatever's happening. And then we'll see what Amy Adams Strunk decides at the end of the year as to who's gone. It's hard to apply basic common sense structure to what's next for the Titans because I really just don't know what Amy Adams Strunk is going to do from day to day with this team. So it's hard to tell who she favors and who she doesn't. It certainly seems like Chad Brinker is in that side of she favors him right now. Could that change with a bad start to the season or a terrible year? Maybe, but really no one knows.
Chad, what did you make of the video the Titans put out? We played the cut a bunch. I can't get over the backwards cap, but I guess I'm just a curmudgeon. But Brian Callahan, really trying to fire up the guy saying, I believe in this team. This can be a damn good football team. What did you think of Brian Callahan's rah-rah speech?
I didn't even notice the backward cap, honestly, until you said that. So that's not one that bothered me. That's the first time I thought about it. I mean, it looked like a guy trying to sell hope. And hope is not a strategy, right? Like you have to have a game plan. You have to have a strategy. That sounded like a guy trying to sell a group in a room that he knows probably isn't that jacked up about the season and trying to sell them on a vision that may or may not even exist. I didn't
But he felt their
bad.
energy when they walked in the building that day.
Yeah, I want to see the video of Callahan getting on them. That's what I want to see. Will the Titans ever publish that? If he's ripping into his team, like that's what I want to see. Because that's the side, other than the one moment caught on the sideline where he got onto Will Levis, and we all know the question he asked him, what the bleep are you doing? And then he apologized for it.
Oh, that was
after
weak.
the game. And talked about how he didn't like that was caught. And, I didn't want to get on my quarterback. I mean, come on, man. Like, Mike Vrabel's not apologizing for that. And that's what really bothered me. I want to see more of that side of Brian Callahan. That was my biggest point of, okay, maybe this guy does have something a year ago, because he responded exactly how everyone should respond to some boneheaded play that Will Levis made. I don't care about him being Tony Robbins or Butch Jones and standing in front of a group, talking about the energy bus and waking up ready to go every morning and excited about practice. That a lot of coaches do that. It didn't really affect me one way or the other.
What did you make, Chad Withrow, with us? What did you make the Will Levis news early in the week? Are you one that thinks that this is a sign that Levis is a quitter? Or do you think, hey, you know what? It was a good for him to get the surgery and to get healthy.
He's a quitter. I mean, like, I get why he's doing it, but he's a quitter. He's another symptom of what's going on in that building, of people being selfish. Remember the last dance when Scottie Pippen was in the contract negotiation?
I thought the exact same thing, that I'm not going to mess up my summer.
Yeah, why would I have surgery? I will do it right before the season. And then they cut to Michael Jordan, and remember what Michael Jordan said? Scottie was being selfish. Was his response to it? I mean, that was my reaction. Will is being selfish. He's upset that he's no longer the crown prince of Nashville and the starting quarterback. So, I'll wait it out and get surgery before the season so I don't have to sit through it.
So true. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick. The hot seat awakes next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick, as he always is on a Friday. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
Let's get right to it.
Number one, no first-team reps for Shedeur Sanders at Cleveland Browns camp. In fact, he's the only quarterback in 11-on-11 that so far has not gotten any first-team reps. Asked about it, Shedeur Sanders said that's out of his control. Joe Flacco took a day off. Kenny Pickett got the first-team reps. Dylan Gabriel has gotten first-team reps. Joe Flacco the next day got first-team reps. No first-team reps for Shedeur Sanders. Are you surprised? And what does it mean?
I'm a little bit surprised, and I think what it means is that they are going out of their way to show something and prove something to Shedeur Sanders about where everyone thinks his ego is, and they're trying to keep that ego in check. So they're not even going to do what they're doing for every other quarterback, including Dylan Gabriel. I still believe, though, Jared, that he will start a game before the season's over. I'm disappointed also because he's probably the most interesting thing about the Cleveland Browns. But, I am a little bit surprised, but also understanding this is why they're doing it, is to continue to keep that ego in check.
Let me say this to your point about him being the most interesting thing. If he's the fourth-string quarterback, that probably means he's going to play a lot in the preseason. All three of their games are nationally televised on NFL Network. I bet they get ratings, like get real TV ratings if Shedeur Sanders is playing in the preseason.
Totally agree. I'll watch. There's not a lot of reasons to tune into preseason football, but to watch Shedeur Sanders to see how he does, I'll keep an eye on that.
Number two, what was Jerry Jones thinking this week, criticizing Micah Parsons, mispronouncing his name, mispronouncing his agent's name, and criticizing Dak Prescott?
I'm thinking that Jerry Jones is really old, and he wants to win a Super Bowl, and he's probably first off, let's start with there. He's really old, is what I think is part of it. And I just don't think he's around to play games with these guys anymore that have not given him what he wants more than anything else in this world, which is their first Super Bowl since the mid-'90s. So I think that's the message he wants to send more than anything else.
I was sitting there this morning thinking about this. I'm like, has he been like, you know what, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'm going to get on these guys' asses. I'm going to get on Dak's ass and say, Dak, I'm paying you $60 million. You better play this season. And I'm going to get on Micah Parsons. You want me to pay you $40 million? You better go out there and sack the quarterback. Or is Jerry just an old cooter who's completely lost reality? And I can't decide.
I think it could be a little bit of both, honestly. I think it's a little bit of old man mixed with a little bit of I've had enough with these children, and I'm going to say exactly what I think, and I'm not going to soft pedal anything.
Number three, how do you feel about the Bengals and their horrible defense with holdouts Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson, and how mad should Joe Burrow be?
Yeah, I'm watching quarterback. I'm not done with it yet. But Joe Burrow and that whole dynamic in Cincinnati is very interesting.
By the way, I think he's the coach of that team.
Joe Burrow is, yeah.
Yes.
That they all look to him, and he's got a great hold on the team, it feels like, just watching him and how he interacts. And he's so calm. But not good. I mean, if Cincinnati wants to have any shot at doing anything this year in that division, that they need both those guys to be good and engaged. So, I think it's bad for Cincinnati. But I agree with you. I think that Joe Burrow is a really good leader, and I think part of it is because he does stay so even-keeled the whole time. But that's a team that needs a kick in the you-know-what, I think, more than almost anyone else.
So I have this theory that because people are talking about Nick Saban, my theory is Nick Saban should be the next coach of the Bengals. Because then Saban can actually be the coach and can get on everybody's ass, and Burrow can just worry about playing quarterback.
So Saban would be like 74 at this point, right? 73 or 74. I don't understand why an NFL team would want to do that. Like, I get Pete Carroll, but
Saban or Zach Taylor.
Well, I mean, go find a Ben Johnson or someone that you think is going to be a really good coach. I just don't know why you want to start
Saban or Ben Johnson.
Guy in his mid-70s.
Right now, you're an owner of a team. You want Saban or Ben Johnson?
I want to go find a good coach who's not 74 years old.
I'll take Saban.
Saban was not good in the NFL. He wasn't.
But he didn't have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
But again, like if you think Nick Saban's going to come in and win a Super Bowl right away, a guy who bemoaned college football for becoming too much like the NFL. First off, he hates it. So you want to go hire that guy to be an NFL head coach now. I don't think that's the right move at all. If I'm an owner, I'm not interested in hiring a coach to start something in his mid-70s.
I think the reason that Saban hated what happened to college football was because the deck was no longer completely stacked in his favor. He goes to Cincinnati. He's got the opportunity to prove he can coach in the NFL, which is still hanging over his head. And he's got the deck stacked in his favor because he's got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in every game he plays in.
Well, yeah, and then wait until, Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart hold out under contract.
Yeah,
and then
Saban
he's
wouldn't
right
like
back
that.
to square one of being pissed off again, because how are these guys getting paid so much money and unhappy? That's going
He'd
to be
be
Nick
up
Saban's
Mike Brown's
responsibility.
rear end, though, as well. Mike Brown would never hire Saban. He'd be too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Nick Saban's coaching again. I just have a hard time believing he's going to coach anywhere. But, hey, I guess there certainly are worse. There are coaches with worse track records out there than Nick Saban, even in the NFL.
Number 4, what does the Big Ten's inability to win any public support at media days for either their 4-4-2-2 college football playoff model or the bitching that they did about the SEC with 8 conference games and the fact that they played 9, throw in James Franklin's comments trashing the conference for holding media days in Vegas? What does that tell you about the Big Ten's power in college football?
I just think they keep fighting the wrong battle, everywhere. Like stop talking about – a great example is Kurt Signetti, talking about when he's asked about dropping the Virginia game. Oh, we're going to take an SEC approach to our schedule now. And I'm thinking, dude, Georgia, look at the SEC and who they're playing. Texas A&M is playing Notre Dame. LSU is playing Clemson. Like, you can go down the list. Tennessee's playing Syracuse. That's far better than any non-conference opponent that Indiana plays. Plus, all these schools play an SEC schedule. I just think they're barking up the wrong tree. And whenever you pick the wrong hill to die on, you're going to look stupid. So I think Tony Petitti's a good leader. I think he's a fine commissioner. Everything Greg Sankey says about him seems to be like a guy who is competent and does have some respect. I just think when you say dumb things, there are ways to go after the SEC because the SEC is too up its own butt at times, especially with the media that covers it. But that's not the way. Like for Kurt Signetti, we're going to schedule like SEC teams. I'm like, dude, look at every SEC team schedule and look at yours. And then let's talk ball, because that's not the hill you want to die on.
Did you see what Pat Forty wrote? Speaking of Petitti, did you see what Pat Forty wrote about him?
I've not seen that.
Forty talked to a source who said that Petitti has lost the room and, quote, is way out over his skis in reference to the playoff model. Basically, Petitti's getting an earful from NBC and CBS saying we want better games because they're paying a combined $700 million for 6 of the top 50 games. Meanwhile, ABC's paying less than half for 34 of the top 50 games. So he's getting an earful from the TV partners. He's getting an earful from the coaches, and he's not making any progress. I am not convinced Petitti knows what he's doing.
Well, I'll say this. If he's getting an earful from the TV networks, he's going to bend the knee to the TV networks because that's his background. So I think that's going to ultimately be what makes the decisions for him, will be what television tells him to do.
How much do you care about Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels? ESPN expected to air in good slots 8 of Carolina's 12 games.
I care a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of ACC teams I care about going into the season, but North Carolina is one of them. I'm excited to see what he can do. The Jordan Hudson stuff has quieted down. So is she going to be someone that the ESPN cameras are going to find? Is she going to be some sort of distraction during the season? It doesn't seem like she's been on the radar much here recently. So, yeah, I mean, it's Bill Belichick in college. Look, the reverse. We just got done talking about Nick Saban. If Nick Saban coaches an NFL team, suddenly I'm very interested in that NFL team. Same goes for Bill Belichick. I want to see if he can make this work. I want to see how he looks on a college sideline. I want to see if he can surprise some people at North Carolina. Maybe he's still got a little magic left.
By the way, there's breaking news. Shamar Stewart has agreed to terms on his fully guaranteed contract. Pelissero reports after a lengthy standoff over contract language, Stewart got improved payout language and can now get on the field. I really want to see that, though. I wonder who actually blinked. Was it Stewart? Was it the Bengals? They're making it sound like it was the Bengals, but Pelissero's probably hearing that directly from the agent. It will come out in a couple hours who actually blinked.
Well, hey, Nick Saban loves that news, Jared. There you go. As the next coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, he is eating that news up right now.
I don't think Nick Saban likes Shamar Stewart very much. Guy doesn't produce it all in actual games, but what do I know? Finally, Chad, absolute tragic news at our station this week about the passing of Aaron Donnick. I know that you've worked with Willie going way back to your days at 104.5, and so your memories and your thoughts on Aaron Donnick.
Yeah, very, very sad, first and foremost, and obviously praying for Willie and Evie and Mahoney and the entire family. Yeah, Aaron was such a great – she was a great unifier. She brought people together. That's what I remember about her so much. Every room that she walked into, that room was brighter because of Aaron. Before I married my wife, Angie, she set me up on a date with one of her friends right when she met me, immediately looking out for other people. And I became friends with the person that we went on the date with. I house sat for the Donnick. She was just such a presence and a light. And everyone she met, it was like she was wanting everyone to continue that circle and meet other people that she liked when she came in contact with people. And I'll always remember that. And, you know, when I heard the news that she was so sick, it was just so tragic because of the life force that she was at all times. So, look, to know Aaron Donnick was to be a better person. And I'm thrilled that I got to know her. And it's been too long since I've seen her, but every time I was around her, it was such a shot of energy. So I'm thankful for that. And again, just really thinking about Willie, his entire family, and the entire 102.5 family as well, because I know everyone there at that station loved her as well.
Everybody did. You know, it's funny. I all the sentiment that you had, I felt as well. I was just totally gutted when I heard the news about Aaron at the beginning, before she passed away, when I heard that she was sick. But what really stood out to me was, like, I hope we've done a good job this week, you know, when we've talked about her, and I know Willie talked about her, and, you know, and just was breaking down, and it got me listening this morning when Joe and Paul played it. Paul had very nice words to say about Aaron. Everybody did. But I hope we've done a decent enough job of really portraying to the people what kind of person she was, because everybody, I think, feels the exact way that you just said, Chad. And I just want everybody to know the kind of person she was, because we should all try to be more like Aaron Donnick in our lives.
Absolutely. I forget who said it. I thought the piece in the Tennessean was really well done.
Yeah.
But I forget who said it, but that, you know, Aaron made everyone feel better about themselves. And that she had so many people that when they were going through tough times or dark times in their life, tragic times, they went to Aaron Donnick. And I think that just shows her humanity so much. But it was just someone you were always excited to see. You know, years after I worked with Willie, if I was at an event at a Predators game or a Stars event, I mean, just seeing Aaron and the hug she'd come up and give you, it really does. It's amazing how much things like that can leave an impression on people. And she left an impression on everyone she ever came in contact with. And for that, I'm grateful. And I know everyone that can hear this that ever met Aaron Donnick is grateful as well.
You know, I'm going to tell a quick story just because, and it's pretty revealing about my life. But I think it's fair. I mean, whatever. People can think whatever they want. I told this to Mahoney earlier today. So Lindsay and I found out we were pregnant, like, I don't know, 4 months into knowing each other. I mean, I'm being completely honest. This wasn't something that we were planning. Look, we love our son and we're glad it happened, but it wasn't something we were planning. And so Lindsay came like a week after we found out we were pregnant. Lindsay came to a station party that we had at Jasper's. And I remember when she got there and I was introducing her to everybody, because I'm sitting there thinking like, hey, like, I'm about to tell these people in a couple of months that I'm having a child with this woman. So it might as well be nice that she get to know the people that I work with. But the person that I was most excited to introduce her to was Aaron. And I was trying to think why. And it was because, like, first of all, Aaron Donnick probably gives her approval on pretty much everybody. If you don't get Aaron Donnick's approval, then you got to go look in the mirror. But it's almost like, of everybody in the room, all the people I were, the person whose opinion I cared about the most was Aaron's. And I think that kind of encapsulates how I felt about her, and I'm sure how a lot of other people felt about her too.
It's very well said, and I'll kind of close with this too. And you're right about getting Aaron's approval, but wanting it, but also seeking her out in a crowded room. Was the same way for me when I was young and starting out in my early 20s in this business. If we were at an event, I would seek out Aaron Donick to talk to her. Evie and Willie have a daughter named Evie. I have a daughter named Evie. I'm not naming my daughter Evie if I didn't love Willie and Aaron, right? That name stuck out to me, and I remember it. Now, their full name is different, but they both go by Evie. But Willie and I have talked about it. We both have our own Evie, and a big part of that is Aaron. And, that's why the news hit so hard when I heard it earlier this week.
Willie, or I was Willie. Chad, great stuff. Well said. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Chad Withrow joining us on the program. Stillman and Company. We continue. 102.5. 106 for the game.
I'm much more comfortable in the day-to-day, much more comfortable being in a position in front of our football team. As far as the leadership roles go, the accountability goes, those things have all become much more comfortable for me, which is good. There's still things that I strive every day to be better at. And then just managing the role. There's just a lot that goes into it, from an operations standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint, from a staff management to the players to the scheme part. All of those things I've feel like I've improved tremendously in a lot of areas. And I'm really, really looking forward to getting year 2 underway. And I think my excitement and my enthusiasm for where we're at and our potential to be a good football team is really high. And a lot of that comes from, I think, my own confidence in the role as it is. So that's a short answer to probably what could be a lot longer. But I feel really good about where I've developed too, just like our players probably do in their first year to their second year.
Brian Callahan feels great about this season. Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi the day before were like, Super Bowl, yeah. Look, man, we got a lot of work to do. And Brian Callahan's like, I think we'd be a good team this year, and I feel great about going into my second year. And maybe he's right. And maybe Callahan will look like a different man, a more informed coach, somebody who really did learn from the lows of last year and really took it on the chin. You know, Jim Schwartz, when he was defensive coordinator of the Titans, he was awful that first year he was defensive coordinator. After that, turned into one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. It's possible. Bill Walsh cried on the plane on the way home after a Monday Night Football game in his second season, leaving Miami, coaching the 49ers. Did not think he could be a head coach in the NFL at that point. One of the greatest coaches ever. So who knows? But here's my advice for Brian Callahan, if I may give it to him. And not only am I going to give him my advice, but if he does this, even if he does it exactly as I say he should do it, I will get no credit, because the second I say, oh my God, he was listening to the show and he made the perfect call, people are going to say, you think too much of yourself, Jared. But I'm going to give it anyways. The pads go on next week. If I'm Brian Callahan, I call Arden Key into my office and I level with him. And I'm picking Arden Key for a specific reason. I tell Arden Key, Arden, you know that I've got to be tougher on this team. Yes, coach. You know that I've got to really hold these young guys accountable here and get this thing right back on the train tracks. Yes, sir. Arden, you know you're a guy I can count on. Yes, sir. When the pads go on, I need you to mouth off or push somebody down or throw a punch or something. And when you do, I am going to go off on you in front of everybody, in front of the fans, in front of the players, in front of the media, and I am going to kick you out of practice. And I'm going to make you make the walk of shame. I'm going to send Jeb from security to walk your ass into the facility. And then after it's over, you and I, it'll be our little secret. I think Arden Key would understand. The reason I'm picking Arden Key is because Arden Key is a legitimate veteran who's been on the team for years. Everybody knows Arden Key puts the team first. There's no question as to whether or not Arden Key is a committed player. No question to the media, no question to the fans, no question to anybody inside the locker room. They all know Arden Key cares about the team. Number two, so it wouldn't hurt Arden Key's reputation if he got in a little skirmish in practice and Callahan kicked him out. Number two, Arden Key talks a lot. And if you're going to make this, if you're going to stage this, but you want it to not look staged, you need somebody who this could actually happen to. I mean, if Chigakonkwo, who's probably afraid to step on a fly out there on the field, if Chigakonkwo gets into a fight and he goes off, everybody knows that that's probably fake. But not Arden Key. And I think Arden Key's a veteran. And he understands what Callahan's trying to accomplish here. And the other thing, too, is when you get set up for something like this, there's going to be a lot of talk. Callahan kicked out Arden Key today. Callahan stood up to Arden Key. And also, Arden Key is a bigger guy. Now, look, he's not Simmons, but he is a bigger guy. And most importantly, Arden Key's not Simmons. With Simmons, there's no way you can trust Simmons will not take it too far or won't get upset when people talk about him getting kicked out of practice to then blow the cover on the story. I don't trust Simmons. He's too volatile. And not only that, this message is really for Simmons as much as it is for the younger guys. I wouldn't tell Arden Key that, but it's for the veterans too. And so I think if Brian Callahan were to get an opportunity, they may start fights anyways, but if Brian Callahan were to get an opportunity to lay into Arden Key, this isn't like throwing Bryce Oliver out of practice. Woo, big deal. I think if he were to get the opportunity to throw Arden Key out of practice, to stand up to Arden Key and to embarrass him and send his ass out of there, the opposite of what he did last year, I think the media walks away from practice saying, Callahan has shown growth. And I think that does a lot more for him and what people inside that building and what people outside that building think of him than just some rah-rah speech with a backwards cap on. That's just me. And again, if this happens, if they put the pads on Monday or whatever day they put the pads on, if they put the pads on and Arden Key hits Cam Ward late and one of the offensive linemen turns around and pushes Arden Key down and Arden Key gets it and Callahan blows the whistle and he lays into Arden Key and he sends him out, you know as well as I do that'll be the story of camp that day, that Callahan stood his ground. And the second thing is, you know that even if we play this audio recording back of me saying this is what he needs to do, everybody will say, oh, come on, Jared, he didn't listen to you. So that's my advice. This upcoming week for Brian Callahan, that's my advice. Get Arden Key on the same page. Have him push down Cam Ward. Kick him out of practice. Earn respect. Isn't it Orson Welles? They used to hire people just to fire him so that he would get everybody's respect. That's my advice. Stillman and Company, 102.5. Want to see the game? Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. I need to give everybody some advice as we head out to the weekend on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So, you know the whole story with the NFLPA and their head and everything else, and you know how they expense trips to the strip club, and now he's resigned, and J.C. Treader, the president of the players, he's resigned. And a criminal investigation, this is ESPN, Kalen Kaler and Don Van Natta Jr., a criminal investigation into finances of the NFL Players Association includes potential misuse of funds and self-enrichment by union officials, according to a confidential document obtained by ESPN. The scope of the federal investigation was outlined in a memo titled Crisis Management, drafted by a senior union attorney and shared with the NFLPA's executive committee and player representatives this week. Again, you know what that's about, right? It's about the strip clubs. They expend $700 for a ride to the strip club and apparently like $2,000 at another strip club in Atlanta. One was in Atlanta, one was in Miami. Now, I don't go to the strip club. I don't think I've been to a strip club in 10 years. But at the same time, I'm not ruling out that at some point in my life, there may be a time where we end up at the strip club, right? Everybody's hanging out in Vegas. People have a couple drinks. Somebody goes, let's go to the strip club. All right, yeah, okay. We end up at Spearmint Ryan. I don't know. Let me give everybody some advice here. I don't expense a lot of things at work, things I probably could, because it's kind of a hassle. And at the end of the day, when something's $11, is it really that big of a deal? But I also don't make $3.5 million like Lloyd Howell Jr. did, the former president of the NFLPA. Never, ever, 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 ever expense something at the strip club. Never. I don't care if you're a pimp and you're going to meet potential clients. Don't expense anything from the strip club. Because when you expense something, there's documentation of it. And when there is documentation of something, it means that at some point somebody else might see it. And if somebody else might see it, that means there's a chance everybody else might see it. There are certain things to put the corporate card away for. The strip club is probably one of them. Not only did they not use the corporate card, they tried to expense it. They tried to get their own points. They were trying to get reimbursed. I saw this with a congressman a couple of months ago or a year ago or something like that. They looked into his finances. He was using campaign funds for OnlyFans. Talk about for the people. Again, if you want to gamble, if you want to drink, if you want to smoke pot where it's legal, if you want to do gummies, if you want to go to the strip club, if you want to go to one of those countries where prostitution is legal, like Amsterdam, that's your business, not mine. But the second you start expensing that stuff is the second somebody's going to find out about it. So let this be a lesson. At the end of the day, is the $700 you were going to get back for the strip club trip, is that worth a federal investigation? Is that worth, for somebody who I saw is worth 9 figures? Is that worth everybody knowing that for your job as president of the union, you went to the strip club twice? Again, that's my advice for the weekend, kids. Be safe. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody Monday at 2.